So, what I'd like to do tonight is open the, or continue the public hearing, go through all of the articles, vote on continuing it until Monday, and
I
then,
move we open the public hearing.
and then we will go
Continue
over
it.
the reserve fund request from Tim.
I move we continue with open
You're
hearing.
having no public hearing on Monday. It's a public meeting.
Public meeting,
Yes.
sorry.
Oh, you cut the public hearing off today?
Yeah, it's the closing.
Ah, I guess I would know that if I looked at the agenda.
We did it a little bit differently this year because we started on Tuesday.
That's true.
We usually go Wednesday, Thursday, Monday. This year we did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
So we're in good shape.
We're in very good shape.
I have a motion,
Second.
a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we are open. So Tim, where do you want to start?
Probably at the beginning. We have 30 articles for town meeting on the 21st. One logistical issue. We'll have a joint meeting with the moderator on the 17th at 7 o'clock. Yeah, I'm gonna hand them out in a second. We're gonna go through Article 1, not a lot of movement inside there, but I'll just tell you that we estimate new growth at a number. Should have a quiz to see if anybody remembers the number. It was 550.
550?
There you go.
Okay.
The assessors had a lot of growth. They saw a lot of growth. They're working with Department of Revenue to get new growth certified. They think right now preliminarily, DOR was in the building last week. The new growth will be about 850,000. So you'll have money to spend at town meetings. So all these proposals that we're talking about, for the most part, are raise and appropriate. So they're money that's inside the levy. Probably the more important piece of that, the growth in the commercial industrial property for that 850, 44% is from commercial.
Oh, that's gone up.
It's it's not the split, I don't want
Right,
to
I
confuse
understand
anybody.
that. We don't have a
The
split.
split is still 98, 93.7% for commercial industrial. But the growth inside of commercial and industrial property is growing, so that's a 44% versus in other years, and commercial has grown at 70 and 80%. So we're moving the needle ever so slightly.
Yep.
So those are
Great.
two caveats to
good.
hand out these motions.
Tim, does that include anything for the UPS land?
No. Actually, it does. So the land had to be revalued according to IRS, sure. DOR's regulations, so the
Yep.
751 that it was valued when we talked about it at town meeting
Mhm.
is more like 2.1 million, something like that.
Okay.
So that's in there. I will tell you that we set aside money every year in overlay reserve to deal with abatements and exemptions.
Oops, I have one, I got one.
Yeah, the extra girder.
Please, we're a couple of members missing tonight. Thank you.
So I don't know where I just left off when I handed that last piece on. Who just happened to the last question?
Very
So you're
good.
talking about the overlay,
Yeah, the
reserve.
overlay, so that, if people wanna contest their values, through this process, and there's a public review of those documents in the assessor's office that she's provided to give notice and so forth, to the community, they can come in, and if there's validity to someone's claim, then that overlay would be used to offset that value adjustment. We don't do this in a vacuum. It's Department of Revenue that oversees the work we do, or the work the assessors does, to make sure that they have equity amongst all classes of property. So it's not just us making it up. It's the true value, whether it's a four-family or a single-family or a multi-tenant dwelling. Those values have increased significantly because they're getting a lot in rent, and if they don't do an income loss statement, we have to go by what people do provide an income loss statement to figure out what their values are. So a little bit of a crash course in assessing, but the matter of the facts are the growth is higher than we expected. We are not using the full 850 at town meeting in October. We're only going about 775 to leave a little bit of space there. So when they set the tax rate after you set the levy limit at town meeting, Board of Selectmen will set the tax rate, and when we get the recap sheet, there'll be a little surplus, maybe 80 grand in terms of excess capacity and levy. I just don't wanna go to the maximum, because then we have no flexibility, and if it was to be lower in some area, Chapter 70 or local aid got cut someplace, we would have to just cut back our expenses until we got to the next town meeting. So, and we certainly don't wanna overcharge people
Right.
either. So that's the caveat to it. So Article 1, there's transfers within the budget and there's raise and appropriate. So 4,500 from town administrator expenses to town administrator personnel. That 4,500 is due to two things. One is, I usually go through a professional ICMA association conference annually to keep up with my certification to be a credentialed town manager, town administrator. Becca got a scholarship to go. I'm not going because it falls on town meeting. So 2 lessons there. Becca won't be at town meeting. And 2, she's going for nothing because she got the money. And since I'm not going, but it's budgeted, I'm moving this money to personnel. We made many adjustments in the Board of Selectmen's office relative to, what's the woman's name? Who was there, who we let go. Yeah, so we had a lot of transition. We did stipends, we did all the stuff to collect and get all the work done. This 4,500 is representative of the administrative assistant's reduction in her stipend, but will be part of her pay. So the long answer is, I have a 16-year tenured employee who's very valuable to me, that I'm not gonna keep going with that full 225 or 250 every other pay. It'll be now 125, but it'll be part of her base salary. Does that make sense? So
Makes sense to me, but doesn't.
So she was getting, 9,500 and more when she was doing all those duties. Now she's doing less, but I still want to acknowledge her effort and tenure and pay her commensurate with what other people in similar positions make.
So the 9,500 was a stipend,
Correct.
and you're effectively
Reducing it
reducing that, okay.
This is for Cindy's position?
for Cindy's, correct.
But is her net gonna be the same at the end of the year? So you're reducing
It'd be
this-
less,
It'll be less.
yeah.
Sounds like it'll be $5,000 less.
So you're cutting it in half, and this is gonna pay for
That half,
that half, but as a part of her base salary, and you're just getting rid of the stipend altogether? I understand, okay.
Will this carry over into fiscal year '21?
yes.
So are you planning on putting the 4,500 back in expenses to go to ICMA in '21?
Potentially, I don't know, I think it's on the West Coast. I don't do well traveling to the West Coast, so I don't know whether I go to ICMA in '21 either, but maybe I'll be the one to get a free trip next time.
From the League of Women in
Well,
Government?
probably
Sure.
not from that organization, but yeah, it will be in the fiscal '21
Okay.
request anyways. The next list, these are all raise and appropriate. So the town clerk was here yesterday or the day before. So we have a special election, which we have to pay election workers. They get overtime. So part of that money is in there. The difference is in the assistant town clerk's position. If you remember, we budgeted 40 for that position. We went through at least 2 rounds of resume collections and 2 rounds of interviews. We found no one that was worth their salt to take the job for 40 grand. So we're going to 46.5. We have a very good candidate who is a curator at a World War II museum, who has a lot of experience in terms of record keeping and cataloging. So I think that's gonna be a valuable asset to have in that office. So that's Candy's recommendation to me, as I support it wholeheartedly, because I met with Paul Cook a couple times and offered him the number at first, and he was like, I just can't do it. And then there was someone else in the list, and it just didn't work out. So we have to increase that number for that assistant town clerk's position to 46.5. So the difference is for those election workers that are gonna be for the special election that'll happen in the end of October. So that's what makes up the 11.4. Health insurance, that 75,000 is a result of movements inside in additions to health insurance, whether people came on for a qualifying event, they got married, they had a baby, whatever, divorced, they get to come on to our health insurance. And we have a PEC agreement with the Public Employee Committee, which is a group of employees, obviously, that we negotiated with to join the GIC. That agreement survives the GIC. Now we're out of the GIC and we're with Harvard Community, or Harvard Pilgrim. And when we negotiated that agreement, we had some payments set aside for deductibles and offsets to incentivize them to let us move programs. So it was part of the negotiated package with that Public Employee Committee. So that's what that 75,000 run out is, to make those claims or pay out those claims for those deductibles. So there's two pieces to it, people moving in and out, and then what we have to pay people that we agreed to in the PEC agreement. And the estimated run out from our insurance consultant is about 75,000. It's less than that because I have movement, but most people, when they have to submit paperwork, they either lose paperwork, they get lazy, whatever it is, they don't submit it. So in terms of hedging on what people will come back for reimbursement, that number will cover us. And if we have to make another adjustment, which we don't think we will, we would make it in May, that 75,000, not to go too far into 2021, will be part of the base, which we build the 6.5% on for fiscal '21. To give you a global perspective. Any questions on that one? Becca might do that more succinctly than I did.
That was great.
So everybody that was on the PEC under GIC has continued on that?
Yep, everybody still continued under that contract agreement with the employee association. So all those benefits stay intact, even though we went to a different insurer.
Got it, okay,
The PEC is essentially a bargaining unit,
yep,
like for health insurance purposes, that we had to create in order to get into the GIC.
yep,
And like Tim says, once you create one, it stays intact.
got it. I wasn't sure if in the negotiations anybody opted out, or, so we have the same community of people under that.
Yeah, we do have an opt-out provision. I don't know if it's $1,000 for a family plan.
I think it's 2,500.
So, but individual, there's one
Okay.
rate because it's cheaper, families more. Becca's been doing research on what other communities offer to opt out, because probably a family plan on average costs us probably $12,000 to $15,000 a year.
Yeah.
So maybe the number's $500.
That's what we do in Groton.
More people to go.
Yeah.
Sense.
I don't think we have a lot of takers.
No, but you do
Bump it,
see.
you bump it up to 4,500, you'll get a lot of takers.
Well,
Yeah.
more communities are increasing the numbers now to use it as a tool
Yeah.
to try
Sure.
to get people to move
It's
off.
worth it, it's worth it.
Well, our problem though, Mark, is this: we have not a very robust health insurance offering, and our deductibles are not like they used to be, right? You enjoyed a 90-10 at some point, now we're at 70-30 splits. So it gets tough, and especially when there's deductibles added, and that's why we had to do the PEC agreement where we paid some people's co-pays or a portion of their emergency room visits or ambulance trips to get them to buy into those high deductible plans.
Got it.
So some complexity there with the 75 grand, but overall, it's still a $3.5 million budget. Soon to go to 5.1 total.
It's like a $4.5 million.
I'm
Go-
stuck in,
to
I'm
go to
stuck in
5.1.
2013. I really want those numbers
Just
back.
keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, so it's outrageous. So that's a raise and appropriate number. Elections and registration expenses is again associated with the election, $6,200. These are numbers we got from Candy. I don't know if she talked to you about those. She told me yesterday she didn't, but maybe it's because you didn't have this specificity and detail when she was here. But that's what the other $6,200. We pay for the meals for the election workers to be there all day, and I think they get minimum wage or below minimum wage, whatever the law allows for.
They get minimum wage.
I don't know if they do, Mark, but
If you don't pay minimum wage, you're breaking the law.
but for election workers, there's an exemption.
I don't think
I
so.
might be able to save you some money in Groton.
Well, I'm paying a minimum wage, so I guess I'm generous.
As we should. Well, they're only preserving democracy, we should pay them. Okay, municipal expenses, 50,000, you see that number, that is as a result of the ramps and the ADA accessibility projects we're trying to do on the front side of the buildings. Not that you've been able to use the two newest ramps because the railings aren't up, should be up, going up Monday, hopefully. We wanna do the last steel ramp by the Veterans Hall out and back. That's what that money will be used for, those are the estimates we have based on the two we've already done.
Hadn't that already been budgeted? In other words,
No, we didn't have enough. We budgeted as much as we could in the warrant article.
Yeah.
We went out to bid, and we didn't have enough to do the last one.
okay. Do we have to do it? I mean, or is this just in order to make it as good as
Well,
possible?
we want it to be uniformed, A, because it looks nice. B, it's not super traversable, and when there's a freeze-thaw cycle and that steel expands or contracts, it hits the door, and sometimes the door doesn't close. Or worse, it'll create a tripping hazard for someone in a walker or in a wheelchair. So we want to eliminate that risk.
Okay.
Did I miss anything with that?
Except that we're also simultaneously, we've applied for a grant
Sure.
through the Office on Disability, Mass Office on Disability, for a construction round. It's as sort of part of the whole transition study process. This is the second part of the process, which is the construction grant. So I went before the Disability Commission 2 weeks ago now to get their support to submit the grant for this particular ramp and railings, and they did support the application. So last week, we made application, we should hear back by December, so if we get the grant, we won't spend the money that's being raised here, and it'll go to fund balance in June.
So the
July.
grant is for.
Is that part of a
50
bigger
grand.
package? Is that part of a bigger package?
No, that's,
request, it's
all
just
we
for
have
that.
is the ramp and the grant application.
Got it. Okay.
So if we get the grant, we won't spend the money.
Yeah.
And if we don't get the grant, we should still do the project.
The grant is project-specific, so you pick one project, you apply, you can only get up to 250 grand in any one grant year, but you can, once you have the transition study in place, you can apply for the grant year over year to attack multiple different projects in your transition study, and that ramp is called out in the transition study.
Okay.
So that's the ADA compliance study. Is there any, I noticed that some of the work was recommended for places like Silver Lake and some other sports-oriented places. Can we use any of the, what is it? I always get them wrong. CPA, CIPC money
Yeah,
for some of those things?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely,
CPA, yes.
CPA?
yeah.
And if
For-
it was voted,
for
we could use
recreational.
capital as well.
Yeah, I was,
The thing is, it can't be considered maintenance, so
Right.
that's the CPC threshold, is you can't use CPC money for maintenance, but if it's capital, you can. So
Okay.
there's gonna be kind of a little bit of a balance in terms of picking out which projects would qualify as capital, but the Disability Commission, part of the, the first part of their charge is to go through the transition study and start to prioritize the projects, think about funding sources, and then make recommendations to the board on how to move forward, so.
Got it. Is it likely, like, how big is the pot of money? Do most towns that are filing for grants getting them?
I don't know, because this is our first time applying. I know that we had to apply twice to get the grant to do the study.
Okay.
I am hopeful that because this is the phase 2 of a larger project that's already started, and we already have the architectural design in place, so we've already spent some money because of the first phase, that they'll be more likely to fund it, because they, when the municipality shows some sort of matching dollar or like part of the process, they're more likely to fund it, so that's, we're hopeful, but there's no guarantee.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking it might be good to engage with some of the other towns that are a little further ahead to see what they've been successful with in terms of the, like when we, the planning board's working on grants from the state on road projects, and that they have to get to that like pre-engineering stage. So it bumps up the chances of the projects being approved, so.
Yeah, that was part of the thought process of having the whole thing designed at once,
Yeah, makes
even though
sense.
we had to split up the construction.
Okay.
and we have the special election coming up. I haven't seen any discussion about having the debate, as we usually have, sponsored by the League of
I
Women
think the
Voters.
League of Women Voters is doing it the Sunday before the election. That's what I heard.
Usually they
It's not
do.
a municipal, it's not a thing. We
Right.
let them come to a room and we televise it, but
I think I
Don't
heard
get
it's
involved.
the 20th, so.
At like 2, I think, is what I heard.
Okay, that's not the $5 entry fee and get some Munchies, it's.
No, no,
done well.
that's completely separate. That's a private group that is doing that,
Okay,
you know, just because they'd like to, and it's completely voluntary on the part of everybody, candidates, whether or not they wanted to come, people who want to show up, again, run by a private group.
All
okay.
right, let's move on to the Board of Health.
Yeah, that has nothing to do.
Board of Health, this is contingent on a later article, chicken or the egg, I'm sure will be criticized one way or the other in terms of how this works out, but to join Central Mass Mosquito Control Program, which everybody seems to support that we've talked to, the Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, staff, the Health Alliance, neighborhoods that are impacted by mosquitoes and/or sickness from E. So there's a $71,000 cost associated with it that comes off of the cherry sheet, so you all know this, but I'll just cover it for the people at home. The front of the cherry sheet gives money, the backside is charges and assessments, it takes money away. That money will be taken away on the backside of that cherry sheet to the tune of $71,000. So we want them to start before July 1, so we're having conversations with Tim DeChamps now to invoice us for the first quarter before,
Okay.
April, May, June, so they can do work, so that's $17.75 will cover that cost. I don't know if they'll really do it, they have to get permission from Boston, they did it with the city of Worcester, because they joined through their city council midway through 2 years ago, and they started early to start with those prevention pieces, and monitoring and trapping and so forth. So we're hoping we do the same thing, so that $17,750 is, again, raise and appropriate for that particular.
So if Article 25 fails, that'll just goes out to free cash at the end of the year or repurpose for snow and ice or whatever later in
Yeah,
the year.
you'll reallocate it some other place.
Okay. There's no, I'm reading the article, under Article 25, there's nothing in there that would allow you to raise and appropriate any money within that article to make it all one, so I guess you have to do it the way you're doing it,
That's
which
fine.
makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, with the start of the new fiscal anyways, I can't,
Yeah, no, I got you.
so. Any
It'll be
questions on
3
that?
years?
I'm sorry?
It'll be 3-year contract?
Tim
know?
came to the meeting with the Board of Health and the Select Board Tuesday, and people go in for a year, and then they have a budget crisis and they back out. They don't chase them down for the difference. So,
It's technically a 3-year commitment once you,
yeah, but they're not holding.
They're not holding people to
hostage, but
So we're not looking at 3 years, we're just gonna go year by year?
town meeting would
I
have
think
to
you're in
vote
till
to
you're
pull
out.
you out.
To
Yeah.
pull you,
Oh,
yeah,
I
it's,
see.
you're
Okay.
in
You'd have to
till
go
you
back to
vote
town
come
meeting
back out.
to
Alright.
pull out. So, to me, it's, once you're in, because I don't think, very rarely does town meeting reverse that vote.
Well, they did here, because you were in once and they came out.
We did it in Groton too. We pulled
So,
out.
but hey, that's the magic of democracy. They can
Yeah.
decide to do it again and think that that's the right thing to do, and they can do that.
So, we're basically gonna say that 21, you projected an $800,000 deficit Tuesday night. Did that take into consideration the $71,000 loss at state aid?
Yeah.
So you could be at a $700,000 deficit if we don't do this.
Yeah, I think terminology is important here, because we might get into this later on, but we'll have $2.1 million of all new money in fiscal '21, $2.1 million of new money. Just let that kind of sink in. So that's not a deficit. If a shortfall, when people make a request for $1,000, and you can only give them 800, you get a shortfall, you don't have a deficit. Somebody asked you for 1,000. You can't give them 1,000 because you don't have 1,000. You have 2.1 million.
Your anticipated budget next year, based on anticipated expenses, is showing a shortfall of $800,000. This is adding to that shortfall.
Nope, it's inside the 800,000.
But what I'm saying, it would be less, the
It
shortfall would be less.
If you didn't do the mosquito control, it would be less.
So, I guess the question is, and I'm jumping ahead to Article 25, because I'm adamantly opposed to joining the mosquito control project. I can understand it's a hot button issue, people are worried about E, and it's out there, and it's in everybody's face right now. But when you're looking at a deficit going into fiscal year '21, this isn't the time to do that. Because now you're pitting school teachers and highway workers against mosquitoes, basically.
But where were we last year, Mark?
Huh?
We had a shortfall last year, too.
And I understand that, but you made it up.
No, we made reductions in
You made
budget.
reductions in the budget. So that's what I'm saying to you. Now you have to prioritize those reductions in the requests, a mosquito over maybe a teacher that's needed, the STEM teacher that they're talking about, or the STEM administrator. Or maybe you need somebody else in DPW, maybe you need somebody else in town hall. the assistant town clerk. So you're basically putting mosquitoes ahead of other needs, and I don't think it's a priority.
All right, well, that-
I'm with Mark, I'm adamantly opposed.
It's for town meeting to decide.
that's
You
fine.
have a friend.
You know?
Let-
Thank you,
Let's
Irene.
pick that up in
Can I
that, in that
ask you a
article.
quick question about the 17,000? Is that any of that, the 9,000 that we already spent on larviciding right now?
We won't, it's a good question, because I think there's 7,500 in the DPW budget that we will not larvicide with, that money will be available. So that'll be.
But that's not-
It's not inclusive of that.
Okay.
Because we don't know if we're gonna join, so I didn't even get into the detail of the math for the 7,500 that we would use, because if we don't get in, I'm still gonna larvicide.
Tim, if we do go with the mosquitoes, who's in charge of that project inside Grafton?
Central Mass, Tim DeChamps is the executive director, and they'll roll out all of their programming to seniors, to teachers, to tire programs for tire removal. and replacement. They'll look at ditches in the town, they'll put up monitoring traps to test mosquitoes, which we never had before.
All understood, but who supervises their work? Who's in charge?
They report to the Board of Health ultimately,
Okay,
but it'll be me,
Yep.
it'll be the Alliance, and we'll all make sure that they're getting service, so if they, when someone calls to get their yard sprayed before, a birthday party on Saturday, and they don't show up, they're probably gonna call me.
okay.
They might call the Board of Health. but
You'll be
they'll
happy
probably
to
call
know
me.
election workers are exempt from federal income tax, Tim. Just wanted to point that out.
Right. Keep reading down, you might find the other.
I'm looking, I'm gonna find it.
All right. So are you sure that the DPW has money for larvicide? Because the Board of Health has that line item in theirs. They've got 9,000 for larviciding.
I think it's in the Board of Health.
Yeah, it's in the Board of Health lines. Did
Yeah,
you
no,
see
not
DPW?
DPW.
Yeah, you
They
said
do
you
the, I'm sorry,
DPW does the
DPW does
work.
the work of dropping
Yeah.
into the catch basins, but the purchase of them. is with the
Materials
Board of
go
Health.
into the Board of Health.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
the briquettes are bought with money from Board of Health. Those are delivered to DPW, and DPW deploys them.
Got it.
And then the school department, probably 2 months ago, they had the way Jay put it to me, they have a combined CO fire system in South Grafton Elementary, and they got a check engine light on, and they wanna fix that, and that's what that 32,000 is. And thankfully, we have the additional new growth we can put towards that for South Grafton Elementary, to make sure we can fix that alarm that they get, and the estimate to fix it is $32,000.
So if we're opposed to one portion of this budget, this proposal under Article 1, how do we handle that? Do I just be opposed to every transfer?
You're
and every
asking me.
appropriation? Yeah, I'm asking.
I don't know.
Yeah, but, well, you've done this before, right? So whatever if it's unanimous, one way or the other, that's what the recommendation is. And I guess the opposing party can write a dissenting opinion.
It's an up and down vote, though, on the
For
motion.
everything.
So, it's yeah, because like I say.
You have to
the
make a
way-
motion to amend on the floor of town meeting to take that 17.5 out. I guess. All right. I'm sorry, I don't mean to delay the meeting.
But if that's the first warrant and you amended it and took it out and then it passed where we joined them, then what would happen?
I guess you'd have the debate under Article 1, and you could assume that whatever happens under Article 1 would go through to Article 25. So you'd make the argument that we don't want to join mosquito control, so let's take the 17.5 out here, and then you'd know what would happen with Article 25. Or you move to advance Article 25 before Article 1.
Are you considering that?
I am not.
So if
There's
it
a lot of
helps,
different parliamentary procedures you can pull.
if it helps, there is a $9,000 offset.
Thank you.
So I don't know if that helps or not.
Doesn't help, I'm still opposed to that.
Fair enough. All right, moving on.
I'd imagine if it played out that way, where the 17 wasn't appropriated, but it still passed somehow, you would just have another special town meeting. And you would lose a month worth of services and go to May and see if you could get it funded in the operating budget for fiscal '21.
Or you just wait until July to start the program.
Yeah, you would lose the 2 months. Yeah.
Or can you amend the motion to, in this article, that if the mosquito control program does not pass in Article 25, this will be taken out?
it won't, unless you had another plan for the 17.75, why would you? Because you wouldn't, it's just gonna go to fund balance anyways. It's either gonna sit in the bank
It's all right if it
unappropriated
goes
or
to
sit in,
fund.
Board of Health account appropriated and go to fund balance.
Well,
Unless
that
you had
would
a
be-
plan for the 17.750 someplace.
Do they do much more than larviciding in the spring anyway?
DPW?
No, Central Mass Mosquito.
Yeah,
Control
the
Program.
tire program, making sure, wetlands where they have mosquito habitats, if you will, to do the testing and the trapping, and then to clear away standing water in public ways, and then the tire program, I don't know what the other two major ones are, well, a lot of it is
Beaver-
defense,
The beaver mitigation program.
yeah,
Is part of that.
So the Board of Health also said there was a big educational component to it.
yeah. Yeah, and the link on, the red banner across the top of the website tells you exactly what they do. I see a lot of value in it. I brought it to town meeting once, it failed. Board of Health supports it now, and brought it forward again for the health reasons, and we support it wholeheartedly, so. We're gonna, well,
But if we have money right now to
Yep.
pay for larviciding on our own, and let's say we start on July first, because that's how we possibly vote, can't we save ourselves the 17,000 and put it somewhere else? Because we already have it budgeted to larvicide on our own, and then just start when it starts on July first, and not worry about them coming in and doing tires, let them do tires on July first?
You could, but I wanna see them ramp up, get to know the community, get to know the Board of Health, and, I mean, it's just to start cold on July 1, whatever it's a good question. You know what, there's an outreach meeting with Tim DeChamps on the 16th. There's 2 public workshops, one at 2 in the afternoon, one at 7. Don't hold me to the exact times, but there's 2 in one day. He can take you through the quarterly things that they do, so starting in March, right to June to August, and whatever they do, from all those pieces, because I know that there's value just more than larviciding. Because obviously, we tried larviciding, and we had a triple E case that was severe.
Right, and there were other communities in this that did other things, and they still got triple E too, so.
Yeah, I don't know, there's an
The mosquitoes
efficacy
can fly
report
up to
that just
50 miles.
got emailed to us. I don't know if people inside Central Mass mosquito control contracted it or not.
They
We
did
should
South-
charge a
Southborough.
toll
I'm sorry?
Mosquitoes.
Young Lake Girl in Southborough, Southborough
up offset the
was
sky.
part of it.
Well, either way, I mean, for the motion as itself, you guys have the opportunity to say yes or no in terms of the motion, because the leadership, and my position of advancing warrant articles to town meeting for consideration. Unless my board does otherwise, the motion will be with the 17,750 in.
Understood. Thank you.
Does it make any sense to take the 17,750 out of warrant Article 1 and put it into warrant Article 20?
No, that's what I said before, you have to stay within the 4 corners of the article. There's nothing in that article that allows for a raise and appropriation. It's only telling you that you're going to join the mosquito
Join the
control project.
program.
Is that because the 17,750 was not,
Part of the mosquito
Okay.
control project when you join. They want to get in there earlier.
So that's for April, May, and June,
It's
correct?
like a prorated.
When we
Right.
wrote the warrant, we didn't know that we would have the opportunity to have that quarter.
And we still don't
before
even know if we
July.
have that.
Yeah, we
We're
don't.
hedging to
that's
think
what I
we
was
do.
trying to
Yeah.
ask, okay.
So it wasn't written to raise and appropriate or transfer funding,
Okay.
it
You
was
don't
just
have the
written to
ability in
join.
that article. There's no
Starting
provision
July
in
1.
there to raise
So
and
that's why we
appropriate
had to put it in
transfer money.
Article 1.
Got it.
That's how you're gonna do it.
So, CO detectors, South Grafton Elementary, we're
Yep, we're good.
all good with?
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, prior year fiscal bills, there were 2. I thought we had none when we started this process, but there's one for Verizon for $289 and one for $204 for Gatehouse Media. I cannot give you a good explanation, other than we process thousands of invoices, and either they didn't send them in a timely manner, or we misplaced them.
Happens.
So we need town meeting's approval to pay those prior year bills. Article 3, Fire Department, we do have a number of people reaching the age of mandatory retirement at 65. So there's a bylaw that pays $100 per year of their time of service to this community. It's pretty inexpensive for people to give that type of service to run into a burning building. So that's what we anticipate the buyout to be, is $25,000. Article 4, we're going to pass over. Do we have questions on that? It's pretty easy. Cisco Homestead, you guys talked to CPC, so you don't need me to go on to that, except probably for the last piece for the baseline report. We'll be looking for $4,000 for my professional technical budget to pay for the 50% share, if you will, for that study. There are 3 proposals being reviewed now. And we'll choose someone after town meeting and award the contract, and they'll start that baseline study. 12, borrowing for DPW. I know John was here last night, night before. So basically, when we did the analysis for what the cost would be for library and DPW, when we looked at we always start with the impact to the taxpayer. Right? We want to know how much it's going to cost people. And we had a number on average for a single-family tax bill of $360, $365. Because the part of the DPW project for construction, for the estimate was like 12 million, the actual bid came in at 10.2, give or take. So there's a $1.8 million savings in terms of the estimate from the contracted amount for that portion. We don't have to borrow that much because obviously we're not gonna pay 13 million for a $10 million project. So we have money in the overall both projects to offset and not impact the taxpayer. So what it boils down to, for both projects to fund and go forward as designed, it's about $5 less on average for the single-family tax bill to put this million into the DPW. The reasons John gave you, I'll just tell you that the paving, we all thought that we could use what's designated for Chapter 90 under the road stabilization account, so that's part of it. The equipment, he talked about that at length. The contingency in that project, or in this project, just by comparison to something like the library project at 10 or 11% contingency, this one had 3. The ledge that they hit, that they didn't know about, which we'll fight with the designers later on that particular piece, we wanna get through the project before we have that fight. That took away all of that contingency. Actually left a deficit of $79,000 in terms of that line item for that particular piece of the budget. Then there was the gas tanks. And the gas tanks are important because you were here when Toma Duhani was here, right? So when Toma came to me and said, oh, I've been doing this design, this is 11 years ago. Those tanks have to come above ground in 2021 because of EPA regulations. We're gonna do it with the project. Before that, if you ever look at his capital book, which you guys mulled over for months,
Right.
those tanks are in there someplace, which is pretty amazing to me. But then they said, oh, we'll do it when we do the project. So those are the 4 major components in that number. You know, John and other people have kind of fed back to me relative to, you know, why wasn't it included in some other place? It's because it was always included to be a part and parcel of the DPW project. To wait and to re-dig up an area to put conduit in for piping is we need to coordinate that work now versus later, because it's gonna cost more money if we wait. So those are the 4 pieces to drive it. We did make this case to the Department of Revenue to keep this 1 million exempt from Prop 2.5. It's important because if it wasn't exempt, I'd have to pay out of general fund money and have less money of that 2.1 to spend on everything else. We'd have to put it towards debt service. But they gave us that approval. I think I sent that out once we got it.
Yep.
So that's that's it all in a nutshell. I know I talked to John. I didn't know the specificity he gave you, but that's my, 60-second piece of it anyways. So I don't know if you have questions on that. I know we'll do a presentation at town meeting and get people to wrap their heads around it. You're on the committee, right, Sue?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of information last night.
All right, should I move to 13? Road improvement, you do this every year. We do this early before the fiscal year starts because the construction season starts as soon as the ground thaws. So town meeting will vote to transfer the money that the Board of Selectmen last year voted to raise. So it gets raised and then appropriated into the fund to do the road projects. We do have a list of those roads here if you want to look at them. The DPW Advisory Committee vets them. Before we do that, we do some ground truthing with public utilities, with gas, water, sewer, electric company to make sure they're not gonna do work on these same streets, so we can coordinate that. So sometimes people complain that it's such a long lead time to know what the roads will be for any year, but it's because we're trying to figure out that component. So I don't wanna use the excuse that utilities hold us up, but utilities hold us up. So if you want that list, we can give that to you tonight. Any questions on that? 2/3 majority vote for that one. Long-range tree removal, this came to me out of a legislative affairs committee for the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. It's an idea that we talked about because we had a motorist traveling on a road that was hit by a falling limb that was struck and killed a year and a half ago in another community down 395. So we know that gypsy moths have wreaked havoc. We know that National Grid is taking down a lot of trees so they don't interfere with winter service during storms. We're trying to get them to do more, as we always do, because we have a pretty good relationship with them. But there will be a replacement that needs to happen because we want trees for an environmentally sound environment. But we also want trees that are dead in the public right-of-way that are in beautiful parts of this town. All parts are beautiful, but some parts have more trees in the public right-of-way that destroy sidewalks and play havoc with the streets, the sidewalk, the curb, and utilities. So the goal is to do the appropriation, remove those trees, keep people safe, and then purchase new trees to go on private property. We will dig the hole, we will put the tree in, but it'll be up to the homeowner where we took that tree down to maintain that tree. That way we don't have to have this problem in 45 years from now, again, at least in those particular places. So that's the plan. It is a $200,000 ask. A tree that is this wide will cost $7,500 to remove. So I can't do a lot, but this will be a start. And we will not talk about specific trees and give you a list, because if I give you the list and something bad happens and I didn't take it down in time, we're gonna have problems. So I'm not gonna talk about a list with anybody at any time.
The tree removal has been under the DPW budget,
It still
correct?
is.
It still is
Yeah,
under-
well, we'll create an article for this purpose,
Okay,
but they do
all
have
right.
tree money.
They made a big ask in FY '20 to significantly increase that budget, because they knew that they were gonna have this tree problem, and it got reduced when we were going through reductions.
We can look online, who's got the web?
I could look it up, actually.
I
I don't
wanna
know.
say it's 30 grand, but
It
I think
wasn't a
it's-
lot of money
Yeah,
that
I
they
know,
had.
it wasn't.
No.
it was to do those things that are in peril that
Right.
just need to come
I
down.
agree.
I think they told us when we talked to them that they had gone over it already, and the money that was appropriated for fiscal year '20 was going to basically mostly just cover what they had already gone over.
Right.
Or not their backlog of trees. that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
had
things
to
they
do.
did. They didn't spend
Yeah,
money in
yeah, they
excess
didn't spend
of
it, but
the
they
budget.
they had a list of trees
Yeah,
they
so
needed to get
their
to.
request was $100,000, and it was cut to $75,000, and I think they probably expended
They spent that pretty quickly.
all of that budget.
Yeah.
Which,
So-
I do actually have that.
We have the
Hey, the manager report, if you wanna look at DPW,
good.
421 is the. account number.
421-5381 is the line. It's 420, not 421.
I say 421? I'm sorry, 420, she's right.
So what would be our balance and overlay after the 200,000?
Oh, that's a good question, because we merged, because you used to do overlay by year.
Yep.
Now they can combine them into one.
5381.
I don't know that.
Short answer is, the assessors feel that the money they have is enough to offset any of their liabilities. So that's why they can release it. I don't know the exact
You don't
number,
need
but we can
number.
get it for you.
That's okay.
Is that right?
How far in advance do you notify somebody that one of their trees is gonna come down?
21?
That logistic, I mean, I gotta talk to Paul of how that actually happens, cause they'll go out, they'll do the assessment, they'll tag it, and then we'll have to talk to those people. So my mental image in my mind, I look from Bushel and Peck going northbound, and I see those trees in the public right of way, and I think those are the trees, if they're dead, I wanna get those trees back, cause that canopy is so beautiful, I need to replenish those. So that we would identify them in that area, for example, for a visual, knock on that door, tell them what the plan is. Some people are gonna say no. I hope they don't. We'll have to convince them that they should take the tree.
So they've spent 21 out of 75 so far.
But yeah, what's the year to date on that one? Is that August, to August?
This is
Oh, it is?
9, 13 and the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah, September.
All right. Sometimes there's lag, but
Have we
Yeah,
done that in the
probably.
past where we took a tree out of public easement and moved it in? Is that common practice?
not in Grafton, I haven't. If DPW directors in the past have kind of made that deal on the side, good for them, but I just want it to be a transparent public policy initiative that we want to undertake to get the canopy back without having the maintenance nightmare in 25 years.
So if the homeowner refuses, are we gonna put a tree back on town land or just leave it bare?
Probably not in the same spot.
Okay.
We'll have to find another spot for another tree.
If the homeowner, 25 years decides they don't want the tree anymore, to get rid of it, or 5 years, then we just have one fewer tree, or is that?
If they cut it down, it's their property at their point. We want to just, walk away from it from a maintenance standpoint. So if they cut it down, we're not gonna go say, well, it's a tree, there's nothing we're gonna do.
Could that potentially impact our, we have a certification that we get yearly, it's what?
Yeah, for the Tree City USA for the past 13 years, you may lose it if you don't replace. But if you go Upton Street on the right in the springtime, National Grid just wiped out that whole power line, and all those trees that go up to the rail, they're just gone. And it's like, it's eerie when
It's
you drive by
dark.
there, it's just empty.
Yeah,
So,
bad.
that's public land, we can replant there, it's just, we gotta pick a tree that's smart, that'll go out, it'll go up into those lines, because they're gonna keep chopping it down.
Sure.
So I don't have all the logistics worked out, because I just know fundamentally it's a good idea to replace them, and we have to figure out the logistics of doing it. But I don't really wanna go through that process if I have no money to do it. So that's the long-range tree piece. DeRoche's Landing, this is just a roadway acceptance, been over 10 years for that subdivision, it's been built. There are 2 streetlights, a little nuance to this, there's 2 streetlights that were approved in terms of the layout, they haven't been installed because we've been waiting to move to LED for all lights. So the developer's going to pay for what his cost would have been to put the mercury sodium lights up, and we'll take that money and we'll put up LED lights on that street. So it's a small coordination piece, but, we're trying to get everything to be uniform and get us the lowest tariff rate from National Grid. Any questions on that one? 16, electric aggregation adder. 2016, we started to aggregate the load for electricity. And in this past year, we decided to add an adder, so they add 1/10 of a cent to the per kilowatt hour cost for electricity. So we went out to bid 2 years ago, and we got a fixed rate for 3 years of 10.8 cents versus what National Grid's rate is now is 13.9, it's almost 14 cents. So there's almost 4 cents cheaper to buy through the aggregation program with the 1/10 of a percent added for the adder. So we have to create a revolving account for that adder money to go to, and it has to benefit people who participate in the program. So we have to do sustainability projects. Doreen DeFazio and the board had a goal meeting, and one of the goals was talking about not only fiscal sustainability, but sustainability overall. And many of you may know this, we ran a lot of oil in this community when I first got here. There were no buildings on oil. There was probably 5 when I got here. They're all on natural gas with high efficiency boilers. So we've eliminated our, that legacy fuel of oil, we don't have it anymore. Everything's on natural gas. So we try to move to a more efficient fuel source and a cleaner fuel source, if you will. This is in lockstep with that. We want to continue those type of programs. We want to help mass save, which a lot of people know about but don't really know how it works. But we need to get the word out to this community that they can do whole house LEDs and reduce their electric bill. They can do insulation. They can change windows, doors, roofs, insulation with the Mass Save program and try to provide assistance to those people to continue to take advantage of those programs. For instance, so that's what that money could and would be used for, has to be used for. Has to go back to benefit the people who participate in the program. So, but we have to create the adder for accountability purposes, and the Department of Public Utilities tells us we have to do it. So right now, because of the per kilowatt generation in the community, it's 122 million kilowatts are used in Grafton. So that would generate $122,000. That fluctuates, right? Some people use more, some people use less. So this calls for a 75,000 for the revolving account. We take in more than that, it'll all go into it, but we can only expend 75,000. Purposes I just mentioned. So that's really 16 and 17 together. Becca, did I miss anything?
No, the only thing I would say is that the adder, the increase is less than $1 per month for the average electricity user in Grafton. So with the 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt amounts to, based on all the kilowatts for the average user, about 70 cents a month additional. And that will go into this revolving account that we'll set up to do programs to give back to the people that are part of the
How many
program.
subscribers do we have to that?
It
Any
might
idea?
be on that sheet.
We have 5548 accounts, that's 91%. Commercial, we have 558 accounts, and that's 9%. So in terms of percent of accounts in program, it's 100%, and the total number of accounts is 6116. And the breakout in terms of kilowatts, which I think is interesting, because you have commercial at 8% of the total of kilowatts, and you have industrial at 4%, and residential is at 88%. So with this, I mean, we do press releases whenever we sign a new contract for electric aggregation, and the math we did based on National Grid's rates, so if people stayed in National Grid versus being under our program, you know, to break it down to the individual, on average for the kilowatts, it comes out to $20 to $30 a month savings for people. Maybe it's not a savings, it's a cost avoidance, because if they were with National Grid, they would have paid it. So really, I guess it's true savings. But if you aggregate that for the whole 6,100 accounts, it's $2 million. So I even did the analysis 2 years ago on the tax increase with all, you know, the 2.5 allowance, new growth, how much new money we have, 1.9 million new money. We offset that cost in taxes by providing this program to residents. So they didn't, while they paid more in taxes, they paid less in electricity because of the initiatives we took to provide energy aggregation. Small things like that, I think, are the value add, the things we should be doing for people.
So,
Anything on 16 or 17?
so we collect about 75,000,
Well, probably
and we use it for,
for sustainability projects. So like, we're gonna continue to do green communities, we're gonna change LED lights on the street
Okay.
poles. We could do a program for income eligible or the elderly, where we can help finance a boiler change or insulation, new windows, new roof.
okay.
But we'll need management costs for that, there'll be program administration in there, so there'll be some money that'll go to staff to provide those type of programming initiatives. We haven't decided all of them yet. There's a lot of things out there that communities do for the constituents that take part in the program.
Does Mass Save apply to municipal buildings?
Not a true mass save, but they do like 3 years ago, the chief did all his LED lights, and he paid more in his electric bill for the station, we all paid more, to pay for those installations. And that's a mass save product,
Right.
but it wasn't true, it wasn't truly free like it is for residents. And some things do cost residents. If you want to do insulation on your roof, that's gonna cost you money. I don't wanna mislead anyone, but they should have those conversations with Mass Save to get the low-interest loans or no-interest loans that they can get. But if we can augment those things, those would be good programs that we should tackle.
Right.
I'll move on to 18, all right? Drainage easement for Adams Road, I'm gonna show you a quick map, maybe not.
Oh, boy, Adams Road.
So we repaved Adams Road. Part of any kind of project that you want to do that's successful, to keep the integrity of a road, you must provide drainage. You have to get the water off the road. So we did that. We installed 16 manholes in a pipe that runs from this end from Merriam down to the outlet where it used to go, or where the water goes now, at 32 Adams Road. So this was always here, there's no doubt about that, but instead of the water, because of the crown of the road rushing off on both sides and just kind of seeping across these frontages, all that water now goes into those manholes, hit this pipe, and come out right here. This is the lowest point of this parcel. All the water always went there. People will contend that it didn't, but you can look at maps from before when the town bought this, and you can see the natural swell and slope of the land where it goes. Bolton Farm is up here, big open field. The ground's frozen, and it rains, it runs, and it pours out of this area. It's horrible, tons of water, which is horrible for anybody. They're on well, they're on septic, those are all problematic things. So the homeowner doesn't want to deal with that anymore, these two homeowners in particular. So we propose taking this manhole and capping it on both sides, running a pipe to here, and then down this property. There's nothing on 38 now. It's owned by a private developer who we've been talking to for months to get this easement where this green line is. They may or may not give it to us. They may gift it to us. If they do, that's wonderful. If they don't, we have to take it. That's what that article does. It allows the town to take this, to solve this problem, to get the water to come out down here at the South Fall.
Worthwhile project.
I wish this was like, I could just do this.
Let me go up.
So, we have to get this appraised, if we have to take it, we have to get it appraised. We're getting quotes from appraisers now, they are not super speedy in terms of responding to me or turning around a quote, but we're working on that, so hoping I'll have that in hand for town meeting. I also hope that the attorney that our attorney is working with will just gift this, because this piece that's not developed will have to have some type of detention basin in it. When this pipe is installed, they won't have to have that, which I think increases the value of his property, because they have to do a detention basin, which might have mosquitoes and everything else in it, on his front parcel. So I think I solved the problem for him. The flip side is it's $130,000. We have manpower that'll dig this hole, we gotta buy the pipe, and we gotta engineer it, and we'll do the work. And we estimate it's $130,000, not including the taking if we have to take it. I can't hazard a guess of what the value is. If they don't accept the value that we determined under the assessment, they can take us to court, the jury of his peers will determine what that value is, and we will have to pay that value. It's a very condensed version of a taking.
So, you're gonna ask for the easement, town meeting hopefully will grant you that easement. You'll negotiate it, may cost you, may not. Then you're appropriating $130,000 to do the work that you just described. If you can't get the easement, you're taking it regardless, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we're taking it, town meeting's gonna approve that too, you know that.
No, I do understand that, but it doesn't mean you have to take it, because town meeting grants you the authority to
Yeah,
take
yeah, I
it.
mean, if it's, you know, if
If all of a sudden they come
the
back and say it's
appraisals
$1 billion, you're not gonna
It's
do
not
it.
gonna happen. So that's worst case, so let's follow that decision tree further.
Yep.
So these manholes, the manholes I talked about,
Yep,
there's been no final paving here. What'll happen is we'll plate those with steel plates, and we'll pave and pitch the road like that, so the water runs back to where it used to run. Not gonna solve this problem, this water's still gonna come here from that side of the road where it's always been for 100 years. This water's still gonna come here. But in terms of the velocity that comes through this pipe, that will not come, it'll shed off the sides of the road. The problem with that is, the degradation of this road will happen quicker than it would have otherwise. So those are the risks you run. We don't think we've designed it wrong, we don't think we did anything wrong, except we had horrible 21 inches on average, higher than average rainfall in November or January.
Last year,
When that ground was frozen across the street, and that completely flooded these folks out. It's horrible, it's a bad situation, but not caused by us.
understood.
But they don't believe that,
So,
just so you know both sides.
for the 130 that you're taking out of free cash for this project, if you don't get it, you're not gonna spend it.
Yeah, we're not gonna do the project if we don't get it.
Okay.
We have to really get them both
You
to,
gotta get them both.
yeah.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
20, 21, 22, all charter-related amendments.
Thanks to Barry.
I don't know, do you need me to cover those in any detail?
No, we blame Barry on a regular basis.
I think a 4-hour dissertation would be appropriate right about now.
All right, well, did you bring any munchies, as you called them?
I actually do have a question about the Adams Road project. So, I know you mentioned there's a little disagreement with the homeowners about whether it's the town's fault. Would this project, I'm not asking you to speak for them, but would this project address their concerns?
It would alleviate the water from going onto their property from that field and from that pipe.
Okay. So if this goes through, that would,
The speed of which the water reaches the property.
Yeah, well, actually, if you extend that pipe though, Becky, you're gonna take all of that velocity that used to come out here
Yeah.
and move it further down to here.
Yeah, if we do the project, yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so
so,
it's the best solution given what we have. A lot of folks wanted us to go to our barn, which is here, but the road is so narrow and the pitch is so high, we would have to open the road probably twice as wide and go twice as deep to get the water to pitch to this point. So from engineering, I would need, hundreds of feet of space.
So what happens, how long is the pipe?
I'm gonna say I think it's 1,800 feet right here.
Okay, and so at the end of the 1,800 feet, what does it open into?
Into a wetland,
Okay.
That's open space.
where it all goes anyways.
Right, but that, I'm just curious,
Takes a lot
so,
of time to get there.
so I have like a drain pipe, it's just big open and the water just comes pouring out, and it comes pouring out into the open. Whose land is that it's
That's
opening up
town
into?
land.
Town
But this will
land.
be, this is a stone, what they call this is an energy bowl. So it's a basin of rock that just absorbs the energy of the water that has that shear flow. We wanted to do that at the top of the property up here to see if that would mitigate it, like a short-term fix. But even though we don't believe it's her property, we weren't gonna kind of fight that fight. She wouldn't let us do that energy bowl, which was like a $7,500 fix. So that's what'll be here,
Okay,
to make a long story longer, sorry.
okay. What is that land currently? Is it just open space?
Yeah,
It's
just
not
all-
a
it's all
field or?
wetlands. We can, if you wanna pull up the map, the
The open
GIS
space
map
that
itself,
Tom bought,
but
that-
this is what they
Okay.
call
We
it,
bought that
an
property
area
a
of
long time ago.
Okay,
ECAC, so it's Misco Brook.
Yep.
okay.
Back here.
Time ago.
Okay, and again, I'm just curiosity. Okay, so it's not a field, it's not a hiking path, it's not part of,
Well, you can see people have done things.
So conservation
oh, I'm
commission.
sure they have, but it's not part of a planned, mapped use.
No.
Okay,
It's
that's.
too wet to, I
Right,
mean,
okay,
there's-
that's
I
what I,
don't know.
again, that's what I was getting at. Okay.
The water that's draining into that will have salt and contaminant. Is that a problem for the wetland at all, or?
No, road salt is, the water in there is not drinking water. Wells that are along here should be deep enough where they're hitting an aquifer and not surface water.
No, I just meant for the wetlands themselves, like the,
like for
Fence or
the
whatever.
habitat.
yeah.
No more than, it's already going there, because it's already going
Well, well, you're directing it now.
there. Yeah, we're gonna have to get it permitted by conservation, they'll ask us about that, I
Oh, so
don't.
they haven't seen this yet?
Staff has, and I believe the owners have been to conservation a couple times, so a lot of people have to agree with the fix, or we just don't do it. So I don't know the answer to that, in terms of what the impact to, the salt is to that area. I can't imagine it being great, but I could be wrong. But that'll go through a secondary process if it's appropriated and we're allowed to do the project. 24, Matt, you don't want to talk to that, right?
Already had that discussion.
All right, so 25, mosquito control,
We already talked about that.
Institute Road Cell Tower. Some discussion at the select board about this. I'm gonna try and give you a 10-second version of this. So, there's already a cell tower on Indian Path, right in this area right here. There's a dispute with the tower owner and the landowner in terms of the deal for the cell tower. The flaw with the cell tower, in my mind, is there's no opportunity for public safety antennas on that cell tower. That's one inherent thing. Because the tower company couldn't reach agreement, or hasn't reached agreement, or doesn't want to reach agreement, whatever it is, they wanted to move to this spot here. This is Greeny Drive, Stowe Road?
Snow Road.
Snow Road. Snow Road would be right here. Greenwich Radical orientation. They wanted to go here, there's fall zone and setback requirements, rightly so, and put their tower here. They pulled that application out of recent because of the controversy and the uproar from the surrounding community, which I think is a good idea, so they pulled out there. When we learned of this particular dynamic in the problem, we identified this parcel, which is town-owned, landlocked, can't get to it. We decided to identify that as a potential solve for this issue and that issue, and get me two things. One, revenue, and number two, public safety antennas for first responders to be on that tower. So we wrote a bid spec, went out to bid, it's due back on the 11th. Two biggest pieces of that is whoever bids on this and wins has to have their access. They have to find a way to get to it because we're landlocked, we don't have any way to get to it. So they gotta get an easement or an agreement from somebody to get to this parcel, so that's on them. So if they don't do it, then they're back trying to figure out their own problem. And then there's the money piece. A lot of you will remember when we sold Creeper Hill, 104, we had a 100 by 100 area set up, cell tower on the back of Creeper Hill. 20 years, yeah, I should have asked you to pick the number, what is the number for?
30,
30-year lease?
30 years and just under $900,000.
So, not insignificant in terms of revenue. I don't know what this will yield from someone, but what they typically do is give you a base fee, and then as they add providers, cell providers, you'll get more residual on top of that. So, we wrote a bid spec that will allow us to A, sell it, B, lease it, with those other two pieces of access and providing antennas for first responders. So there's going to be a cell tower here, because there already is one there, or maybe here, and we'll give them another option. It gets them further away from everybody, a little higher up with better service for the community. I thought it was a very well thought out process, but people disagree. That's fine, but. So any questions on that one?
Oh,
I'm not making a guarantee in terms of the number. I have no idea what people will bid, but I'm just giving you an example of what Creeper Hill yielded for us.
You'll know the number by town meeting.
Yeah, the 11th is coming. If no one applies, people told us they were gonna apply. If they don't apply, then we'll be passing over the article.
Understood.
okay.
So has the gentleman that applied for the special permit, now that he's withdrawn, has he spoken to you at all? Or is that on the QT?
American Tower and
Crown Castle.
Crown Castle. Crown Castle called me today and left me a voicemail. I've talked to them once. I haven't talked to them since they, that's not true. I called them after they pulled out, and they said they were still interested in applying for the RFP, or to the invitation we did.
Okay.
They'll still have to go through some planning board review and process if they were to win it, so. I don't know, that's it in a nutshell. Any questions on that one?
This is all cell, Wi-Fi, there's no microwave or anything like that?
We're very lay people here. We just have a piece of land for cell tower purposes. That's what we put it out as. We didn't specify microwave or non. I suppose if they.
You didn't get an electrical engineering degree to do this?
I do have $100 of electrical code, if that's what you're asking me. But no, I don't know, Barry.
Is it the tower there
I sup-
now, Wi-Fi? I thought it was.
If
I
they
don't
ask
know.
for that, I think that just means more money for the town. Right?
If they were to succeed in putting a tower there, does that absolutely mean the other tower goes away? Or could we potentially end up with two towers next to each other?
Joe's gonna have to answer that because there's a bond on the tower to be taken down for that particular one. From the economic world, from an economic sense, there's not gonna be an AT&T tower and an AT&T tower within 500 feet. They're just not gonna spend that money for the redundancy. They're not gonna need it. So the economy will drive where it goes, and those providers of cellular service will dictate if it stays or if it moves. If they work out that deal before they make the bid, then it'll be better for us overall. I think better for the homeowners because it's further away from everybody else. And I hope, the second piece is the logistics of taking down the tower that's existing.
Okay.
So we'll have to, that might be a piece that we have to negotiate in if there's not strong enough language in the planning board regulation when they first put it up, or any other FCC regulation to make them take it down if they abandon the tower. I think they have to take it down if they abandon it. But Joe would be a better person to answer that question. Anything I miss on that? 27, 28, 29 are all sewer related. And then Article 30 is various stabilization accounts. You know, best case, our budget grows, we want to keep the percentage, right now it's at 7% for stabilization off the operating budget. So as the budget grows and we don't put money in, that percent is gonna go down. So I wanna incrementally, as we go, hit as much money as we can in stabilization. Although it's very difficult to save for college and feed kids at the same time sometimes. So this may or may not happen. Some of it might depend on whether you fund Adams Road. You know, so if that's available, we don't do that, then maybe it's an easy 130 into stabilization.
So what are the various stabilization accounts?
We have municipal capital stabilization account, and we have general capital stabilization account.
You don't have to dictate in the article which account gets what amount of
No,
money?
the motion will.
The motion.
Oh,
The
okay.
motion will.
Oh, these aren't the motions. I thought it said I
This
moved.
one is
Said I
still.
moved.
This
Oh,
one.
this one's still working out. Okay, that's why I was confused. I got you. So town meeting, you'll say 50,000 into this
Yeah.
one. Okay,
I would, and if I had 100 to do, I would just do it into general stabilization.
gotcha.
So, I was looking at previous October town meetings, the warrants that are available on the website, and in a few of them, we're doing, transferring from free cash into stabilization. I didn't see any previous ones we were raising and appropriating into stabilization. Are we doing that because we had so much more growth than expected, or new growth?
The warrant articles, I've tried to always write with the most flexibility to say raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds. I try to do that too quick. So the motions is what you wanna look at. My recollection is it's always been written broad, and then when we get closer to town meeting, it's from free cash.
So that's not the final motion, Dan.
Right.
That's why,
Well, I think you're comparing the articles from previous, but you gotta look at the motions from previous to really figure out what we did, because I probably wrote it with the widest scope possible. In the event that I had 1 million in new growth and not 500,000, and we had flexibility to move that in there.
Okay.
Because if we don't appropriate the money from new growth to go to the maximum levy limit, we lose that 2.5%, which is minimal on 50 grand, but it adds up over 20 years, so you wanna get close to that as possible.
Yep.
so we've gone through all the articles. Do you close the public hearing before you take positions? Or do you keep the public hearing open when you take positions? I can't remember what we did.
That's up to the chair at this point.
Last time I asked him a question, he got mad at me, so I just thought I'd ask
We
you.
usually close
I
the
didn't get
public
mad at
hearing.
you, I just didn't happen to know the answer.
Yeah,
We usually
we're-
close
Matt, I'm
it.
just kidding around.
if
Mark, we
there-
usually close it.
Close it first?
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to close it.
And I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion carries. Okay, what I'd like to do is move on to, the last thing that Tim has, which is the reserve fund transfer request, and then we can vote.
That, stopping that, did they have the beer and wine now? We gotta still pay $20,000 in legal fees? Am I reading this right?
Village Theory?
Yeah, they have a liquor license that was ordered by
The state.
a lower court,
Yeah.
given to them originally by ABCC. The renewal came to us, we did not renew it, because it was an our renewal to renew, so we told them to go back to the state. So we got through this whole thing, and then when it got to the court system, there were certain things in the court's decision that made us worried from a risk perspective, just from a perception. Nothing, no wrongdoing on our part, but since the judge wrote some things in there that could be damaging, we want to hedge against that risk, so we settled against that risk. And that's what the $20,000 is for.
Move to approve the reserve fund transfer request. Really don't have a choice.
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? So Tim, how much has been expended from this, presumably would come from the legal fee? Or the legal account, rather?
Yeah, we have a contract for Ginny Kramer, who's legal counsel. It's about $6,500 a month, give or take. And then we have Mark Terry from Eric O'Connell, who does the labor. We've had a couple labor-related issues recently, but that hasn't been enormous. Since you have 151 in front of you, you can probably tell me quicker than I can tell you. But we're on a pace with this 20,000. We'll be halfway expended for that entire budget.
We already, yeah, we're over halfway expended, because
Now.
because we
Okay.
Because
spent
of the
the 20
20,000.
out of.
But I'm curious to know what the 151 account
I
says for
think
that
it's
big,
in
'cause
the
I don't think I paid
60
that yet.
Yeah, we did.
That was
That
paid
says right
already?
here, the balance is 65,000, the original appropriation was 98,000.
Yeah, as of 9/25.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you're
well, that
right.
was the date it was signed, though. It's
Yeah.
changed
Oh, it
since.
may have.
Oh, it may change since 9/25?
Yeah.
Paid legal bills since then?
Well, no, that's dated 9/13, I believe.
Yeah, this is older.
All right.
than I-
This is
Yeah, so
actually
that's a
fresher
month
than
ago.
that.
So
There you go.
you'll have a little bit more money in there than that, so
And so the settlement is for 20,000.
even, correct.
Okay.
And it was, it's a business decision. We could have
I
fought
think
it,
the
we
board
would
did
have
the right
won.
thing.
We would have won, but I would have spent 60 grand winning.
No, you did the right thing.
I don't know. The board put a lot of time and effort into thinking about how it should go, and we spent a long time in executive session figuring out how to do it.
It's a good decision.
Okay, any additional discussion on the motion?
And just to be clear, if we don't approve this, you have to pay the 20,000 anyway, and you're just gonna cut something
Yeah,
else.
in May, we'll come back and try to get a direct appropriation into that account from some
Okay.
other fund, from some other place.
If we need it. In other words, there is a potential that towards the end of the year, we haven't spent down from the original 98,000.
Well, because we have an all-you-can-eat budget with our legal counsel of 6,500 monthly,
Yep,
you're gonna get there.
I think
gotcha,
it's five.
okay.
That was it. Did I get it
I
down?
think it's 5 grand, so, but
60 grand, 72.
Yep, okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Becca.
Just.
That's what I'm saying, Matt's gotta sign it, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
You think you'd get any other question? Want me to stick around?
I
Let me
think-
turn the AC on. Is it a little warm in here? These lights are all cooked like
Lights,
chickens.
we're getting tan.
Yeah, exactly.
You wanna ask me
All right, Matt, if something comes up, you'll call me, yeah?
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
debt service?
Thanks for the water, Sue. Thursday.
I'm just not in a poking mood.
Me too.
Good night, thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you for that. And I hope I passed the audition.
You did awesome.
Yes.
All right.
No, I'm just saying.
Do we wanna take positions on articles you haven't taken positions on yet?
I think that's a good idea.
I have my first motion. I know you're shocked by that.
Okay.
So we have to do Article 1, right? If I'm following this, Article 1 is one of the articles, right? So we need to vote on Article 1.
Correct.
All right, so I'm gonna move that the Finance Committee recommend passage of Article 1 in the amount of 4,500 in budget transfers and 174,600 in appropriations.
So that's without,
I'm taking out the 17,750. That's my motion. I'm adamantly opposed to Article 25. It's not the time to do it, not given an $800,000 potential shortfall in revenue for expenses. I think school teachers are more important than this.
I'll second.
All right, have a motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
I personally feel like it would I feel like taking that out here is not really the right way to oppose Article 25.
I'll be opposing Article 25 too.
Yeah, but
But why are we gonna spend, if we don't do Article 25, it may pass, I mean, I think there's an overwhelming fear in the community, so it'll probably pass, but if it doesn't pass, or even if it does pass, Why would we wanna spend $17,750 to start 3 months earlier?
Especially when we have 9,000 already ready to
Exactly.
go.
That's an excellent point, Colleen.
I mean, ideally, we would spend 17,750 to develop a time machine and go back for the deadline for the warrant and have it all included in one article. But
I wish they wrote that Article 25 differently, I agree with you.
You know, Article 25 boxes us in for next year.
Yeah.
Whereas the 17.7 gives us the freedom to spend money this year.
Yeah, but what Dan said is if they had written Article 25
Yes.
to allow for both next year and this year, that would be a lot better.
I agree.
I don't blame them. They didn't know they wanted
Right,
to do
right.
that. It's not Tim's fault, it's nobody's fault, it's just the
And
way it happened.
we are stuck, we can't modify this at all? I mean, or the town or whomever can't change Article 25?
No, because you have to stay within the four corners of the article, and there's no ability. It's already been posted, right? You've already posted the warrant?
Yes.
So
Ah,
it's
that's
already
it.
been
Okay,
posted.
It's already posted. Okay,
So
stuck.
it's asking us just to join the program though, too, so that's all.
Yeah, and it does not include 71,000
That we get
that
that
will get
assessed.
added to the next year's budget, 21.
We get that assessed on the cherry sheet, that comes off the top
That
of
comes
our
off, it's
operating.
71,000 less than state aid, which, who knows what's gonna happen next year? What if state aid goes down next year?
Well, I'm sure it will.
And not to mention the fact that, is that fixed for the 3 years, or could they change
The
it?
71 is fixed for the 3 years.
It is, okay.
That is fixed for the 3 years, but, you know, I know Tim, I watched the meeting Monday night, and I know the guy from Central Mass said, hey, if you pull out after a year, we're not gonna chase you down. But you have a legal commitment for 3 years to
Yeah.
be in this program and town meeting votes it. Whether they chase you down or not, it's still a legal commitment for 3 years.
It's 71 for 1 year, 2 year?
Each year.
Per
200?
year, yeah, so
It's
it's
$281,000,
total,
or
Okay.
whatever, 221,000, I
120
can't do math.
But it's also
223.
based on an assessment, so it could go up. It's not guaranteed to be 71 every year.
Well, no, that's what they.
No, no, it's guaranteed for 3 years at that
Right.
fee,
At that rate.
at that
Right,
rate.
but now going into year 4, it could
Could
jump to
go up.
100.
Could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
But we
wished
don't
he
have
had
to
made the 17,000 a
No.
separate article,
I do too. I wish.
instead of
You
bunching
know,
it
they
all in.
could make, within this article, 3 motions. Motion 1, budget transfer. Motion 2, everything, you know, 174,000. Motion 3, 17,750.
They could.
They could. There's nothing to say they can't do 3
Because the
motions.
motions have
If
not been
someone
written.
amended-
yet.
Correct.
If someone asks for an amendment on the town.
You know, but I'm saying they can also offer it as 3 motions. The selectmen, select board rather, sorry, Barry, determine the motions.
Right.
But my motion tonight
Right.
is to support this article in the amount of 174,600. I believe Irene seconded it.
It's been made and seconded and discussed. Any further discussion?
Can we do that?
That's our recommendation at town meeting.
Okay.
We only supported it 174. They're gonna put the motion on the floor, 192,350. That's the motion on the floor. I'm not gonna be there, I'm sorry, but
And our recommendation would
is
say
174.6.
something less than that.
yes. Say that we
But
don't
it's only our
support.
recommendation.
Correct. It's only a recommendation. The
And there's-
motion on the floor at town meeting is gonna be for 192,350.
It's certainly gonna be an up or down vote. Yes, I do support the 190, or no, I don't.
Or somebody can get up and make a motion to amend.
Okay.
I haven't even decided whether I want to support the program or not, much less decide if I want to
Sure.
eliminate this out of here
But if you
already.
call
That's- I know,
them-
I'm
We
sorry.
haven't had a discussion on the program at all yet.
If you call them, they will come and spray your yard.
Yeah.
If you're part of the program.
if the town is part of the
Grafton.
program.
Right.
Ooh,
Or you can do an independent person yourself.
Yeah, I do that in my
Yeah.
house. I pay
Yeah.
for someone to come spray my yard.
So I guess I'm kind of with Dan in the sense that I think opposing motion 25 on its own is probably the way to go. And then if you've done that, then although we've appropriated this money, it won't get spent. So that's sort of how I'm thinking about it, but
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would just assume,
my thinking is the money's not going to get spent on anything else anyway unless town meeting approves it.
Yep.
And if we appropriate it here, we can just reappropriate it
If we
when
don't join the
want to,
program.
or it'll roll off of there.
But wait a minute, there's nothing to say that if Article 25 fails, and this 1775 is in there for April, May, and June, they can still treat April, May, and June. It's not to prohibit that, just because you're not in the program. You put the 1775 in there, they have the ability to treat whether or not you're in the program. Okay, that's why I'm opposed to the entirety of the programs.
Who would come treat if we weren't in the program?
No, doesn't the DPW people do that?
They put
They do
pellets in.
larvicide.
Oh, they do that?
Yeah, and that 9,000.
That's a good point. There
It's
would
already
be anybody to
budgeted.
come.
Right.
Good point.
So where would the 17, if we,
The 17 would just either, he'll probably
Sit there.
use it, it'll be appropriated, so he'll probably use it to offset snow and ice if we're not in the program, which is,
But Colleen, to your point, if we say, spend the 17.7, and it's kind of like a good faith with or the mosquito people, we're gonna be in this program. But then if it fails, if Article 25 fails, we're not gonna be in the program, but we've got the 17.7 and we're asking for them to come out.
so can't we say in,
Don't spend the money at all?
that's right.
But why can't
so
you
why
be-
can't we just say in the recommendation that if if the mosquito control article fails, the 1775 will not be used, it will put it toward snow and ice?
Because there's no, you're appropriating the money to go to the Board of Health expense line in this article. You're not,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
you're not just putting it
But
in Never
general,
Never Land,
okay.
it's going into the Board of Health. So the Board of Health, once that's in their line item, they can spend it any way they want. They don't have to spend it on,
Thousand, so this will bump them up too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm just opposed to the 1770,
But if
1775.
that's only for FY '20, so that doesn't have to make you decide until we vote on Article 25. You could still vote on Article 25 if you wish to the positive for FY '21.
Correct.
No, I'm not, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I
That's- you're right.
understand that, I'm not.
Okay,
opposed.
I'm
I
just
understood
making sure.
that.
So
I
why-
just,
Why don't they put 25 in front of one? It just, doesn't that make more sense? to
Somebody
find
could
out?
move to take it out of order. That would be the perfect way to do it.
Is that up to the town moderator?
I think the moderator does have the ability to move articles out of order.
Do voters at town meeting have the ability to make that motion?
Somebody can move, get up on the floor of town meeting and make a motion to take Article 25 out of order, yes. Absolutely.
So a citizen named Mark Haddad could,
Yeah, but Mark Haddad
He will not be
unfortunately isn't
there.
gonna be there.
Oh, right,
I'm gonna
right,
be,
right,
I'm gonna be
forgot about
fighting the Groton Town meeting that night.
so what would the Board of
Otherwise, I
Health
would.
use the 17,000 for?
Can they pay the DPW to mitigate tires?
Yeah.
They probably
I
could.
suppose they could, they carry a lot more authority than any other committee in town, the Board of Health.
Very
They can
powerful
issue it.
board.
They're a powerful
Yeah.
committee, yes.
Well,
So they
when I
could.
Yeah, when I spoke against this, against joining the project, and I was one of the ones who opposed it, back the last time it came up, I said, I'm listening to what these people are proposing to do for however many dollars they wanted to charge us at that time. I said, and I'm not hearing anything that we can't do ourselves. Every single thing that they offered to do, with the possible exception, and maybe this wasn't even part of their program so much back then with the testing, trapping and testing of the mosquitoes. So why do we want to spend all this extra money? We can do this. We have a DPW, we have a Board of Health, and that's what we've been doing. And yes, I know that somebody in Grafton contracted it, but number one, the mosquito might not have originated in Grafton. It could have originated from as far as 50 miles away. He also could have gotten bitten, not in Grafton, but somewhere else. He just happens to live here.
I feel
And,
bad that that happened to them.
Oh, I do. I feel bad for, for all the people, and not just in our state, but Rhode Island, Connecticut. It has really been worse this year than, it's like one of the worst in history as far as cases go. And it's scary. But I am not convinced that all this money and all these chemicals do a whole lot about it, because it just keeps cycling, and we've got an 80-year history. It comes, it goes, it comes, it goes, and it seems like no matter what we do, it comes and it goes,
Exactly.
and it
So
comes
if-
and it goes.
So if there wasn't a triple E case in Grafton this year, would this article be on the warrant?
No, of course not.
Nope.
So we're going into fiscal year '21 with a projected shortfall, and we are increasing the shortfall.
And I think the
This doesn't
reason,
make sense
He
to me.
included it in the shortfall.
I don't know, I understand that, but instead, he should have said that to the select board, Tuesday night, my projected shortfall is 725,000, not 800,000.
I think this is
Know what I'm
on,
saying?
Well, but he's projecting, because
I understand, I understand.
I
'Cause
think
he
this
wants
is on
it.
here not just because of what the person in Grafton contracted it, because I think it's also, there are 7 people who've died in the state of Massachusetts because of
Understood.
it. And I understand what you're saying about putting money, we could put it toward teachers and that,
Yep, so we have a
So-
strong recommendation from the Board of Health, but I feel like we've had a lot of discussion about this. I think we're pretty clear, everybody's pretty good with what
Excuse
this
me, Mr.
motion
Chair,
represents.
We just received an email from the Board of Health, and I just sent it to everyone.
Okay.
Okay,
Might want to take a quick look at that.
We're not live, right? They're not actually watching this.
Not watching us
be
reading
No,
emails.
no, it's not-
like, might be.
we are,
I thought we were. Jack was here earlier.
it's running.
It's recorded.
it's
Yeah.
running.
Board of Health
I don't
is
think we're
not
ever live,
included
right?
in the financial
know, sometimes
planning
we are.
discussions of the Michigan,
Yeah, this doesn't change my mind.
in terms of okay, so there's, to Irene's point, there does not appear to have been an analysis of what existing staff can or cannot do when it comes to chasing tires, doing the wetlands remediation, so the water will flow instead of sitting there. Chasing people who have tarps that are collecting water, and in a week you have mosquito larvae growing. There doesn't seem to have been an analysis, I guess, conducted by the TA or assistant TA, that says, do we have the bandwidth in town with our current staff, maybe with volunteers,
174,
to do this
600.
kind of
I
exercise?
think I did it right. Hold on, now you got my one.
Correct.
That,
Well, we
that sort of
wouldn't
kind of bothers me.
be able to spray people's properties, if that's what some people are excited for, to say, oh, the state's gonna come out and do it for free.
Yes.
It's not free,
Well, it's
but,
not free.
Yeah.
right, but in their mind, that's what they are gonna think.
Well,
And
If
the
you
aerial
vote, it's gonna
spraying
come
gets
in.
done regardless of whether or not you're in the mosquito control program, because that's done by the state. The
Only if
mosquito
it's
control
high risk.
The
program
aerial
cannot
spray.
do the aerial
Aerial.
spraying,
Only
right,
if it's high risk,
right.
but
That's why they did the spraying this year here, right?
Right, but that's my point is, for all those, but I want that aerial spraying, well, you're gonna get that regardless, because if the state determines it needs to be done, it's gonna get done, and it doesn't matter whether or not we're in this program.
I guess when we were talking to them the other night, and I leaned, after she had answered my I was leaning toward opposing the mosquito control spray program, because she had said, with all that they're going to do, you still have to be cautious of putting on the DEET and everything else. And I thought, well, then, people are going to get a false sense of security that they're okay if we're in this program. And that kind of bothers me, because they still have to do with the education, I understand that. But people need to be fully aware that what you're doing now, you're gonna have to continue doing, because there's no guarantee you're not gonna get bit. So I'm not sure what the efficacy of this program is.
Well, think about it. I agree with you 100%. The state did 2 aerial sprays. Did the town. We still have restrictions. You still don't have night football games or night activities.
Right.
You still have to put the deed on, and we're gonna spend $71,000 in the tightest fiscal year we've had since 2014.
Well, for the next 3 years,
next
if you
3
do
years.
this.
Since 2014, on something that's not 100%. And that's the thing, I didn't even think about that. People are gonna go around thinking, hey, I'm safe. They're spraying.
They already did, somebody I know said, oh, I wish they would spray, so then I could have a few more nights of enjoyment. No, you don't get it, the spray doesn't let you sit outside and enjoy.
I agree, we've had a good debate. I think it's time to vote, Matt.
Okay,
Move the
so
question.
Could you?
I would
you
like
read
to-
the- Would you read the motion
Yeah, my
again, please?
motion was to approve, the Finance Committee would recommend Article 1, transferring $4,500 in the town administrator expenses to personnel, and to support the appropriation of $174,600.
So can we take a roll call on this one?
Actually, I have one more thing. The idea that it creates a false sense of security, I just don't feel like that's a great reason because the truth is it reduces the risk. It doesn't eliminate it. And
How much does it reduce though? And I asked them that and they didn't give me an answer.
Because they don't have
So
one.
we will have the discussion on that article when we have the discussion
Well,
on that article. I think everybody is
Well-
probably pretty clear at this point after this discussion whether they support or don't support the program itself, but that's not what we're discussing.
Right. We're discussing whether or not
Article
to
One.
appropriate
I
the
understand
money.
that, but this is connected to that.
It
And
is.
this money is part of that program. But go ahead, we'll move the question.
All right. So all in favor
Aye.
of Mark's?
Haddad, aye.
All opposed?
nay, you say nay or?
So it's
Okay,
4-3?
I'm going to do a roll call now.
4-3.
I'm going to call everybody's name.
Okay.
Okay, just to make sure. Matt,
Nay.
Irene,
Yay.
Dan,
Nay?
Mark,
Yay.
Sue,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Barry.
Makes it 3-3, huh? When am I bid for my,
No, we already have 4 yeses.
No,
Yeah, it's 4-3.
4-3, right?
Yep.
I lost my leverage.
And Dan, it
All
wasn't
right.
just a false sense of security, but our budget is really, really good. And it's more about the money than anything else.
Yeah.
And it just isn't, there's a lot of reasons that I don't support this program, a lot of reasons. And I'm concerned about all the chemicals that get spread around anyway, but it isn't just because they get a false sense of security. I think some people do, but it's also because we can spend this money in such a more effective way that will be used in a better way than.
It's a matter of
spend-
priority.
It is a matter of priority.
I'm-
That's
I'm
my
just-
point,
I'm
that's
just
why-
Yeah, I'm not convinced we get enough for the 71,000.
I think we should jump and stay while we're on this topic, go right to Article 25.
Yes.
Do it.
And I'm ready to make a motion that the Finance Committee opposes
thought you were.
passage.
All right.
Opposes passage of Article 25, for all the reasons that I've stated previously.
All right. Motion's
Second.
been made
And
and
second.
seconded twice. Any discussion? Going once? Going twice? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In favor of Mark's motion.
All opposed?
Nay, no.
That's good.
So I am going to write the recommendation.
I think we
Oh, so
did
you-
give
you're
it to
gonna
you.
do
Yes, I
Article-
saw that. I watched the end of the last meeting, Sue, and
Okay, so Mark, you're gonna write number 1 instead of me?
I'll write 1 and 7.
Okay,
1 and
10,
25.
25, okay.
When do you need these by?
Sunday, please.
You'll get it.
All right. So let's move on to Article 2.
I move that we approve Article 2 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I move we approve Article 3 as.
Oh, who's
pres-
gonna write that one?
Right now, it's Sue.
Sue? Okay.
I'm
The
writing
names are
that
already
one.
here.
I'm writing it.
Oh, so,
Article 3, I move we approve Article 3 as presented.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
oh,
Aye.
yes, yes, yes.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move
We oppose.
we oppose passage of Article 4. Is that how we do the
Yep.
passovers?
Yep.
Second.
Well, so I think,
We had this debate last
had-
week.
yeah.
I don't remember what we
I
decided.
think we,
I can use, I'll check the
Sue, can you
verbiage.
take notes on this so that next year we can
We all know what we're
not
doing,
Yes,
have to go through this
yes.
discussion again?
because we do it every year.
Now I'm
Yep.
gonna look
This
it
is-
up.
Well,
I know
there's
this is
no-
the third
Third time,
time
yes.
I've done this, and I still don't know what the answer is.
Yep,
Well, we
That's
know it's
funny.
gonna be passed over, so we oppose passage. There is no number of account given to us or anything.
Yeah,
Obviously, there's no,
right, it would be a
we
post passage.
oppose because we understand it's going
there
to be
is
passed
lack of
over at
information.
town meeting.
Okay, then I will take that motion if somebody wants to make it.
So moved.
Second?
We have-
Motion's been made and seconded.
Technically, he has to remove his first motion, but I won't get into that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I withdraw my first motion.
And who made the second?
I did, I withdraw my second.
All right.
Now I move whatever I just, You know what I moved?
You've moved to oppose.
She knows what I moved.
Oppose Article 4.
Yes.
Opposed passage.
Which has been seconded.
Seconded by who?
Irene,
Irene, again, okay.
she re-seconded my second.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I move we recommend passage of Article 12 as presented.
Okay, Article 12.
Can I just go back to Article 5? Sue, Colleen is writing that article.
Yes,
You have your name down here, though.
I'm sorry, I have it, I do have it,
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to make
Sorry.
sure.
Okay, Article 12 is DPW.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move we recommend Article 14 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move we approve Article 15 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move we recommend Article 16 as presented. That's a great program for the
Second
residents.
is, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
My understanding is that the town administrator will choose programs that can be applied with this money?
Yeah, it's to be expended by him,
Yes, but it can only be applied to the people that are in the program.
correct.
Okay.
And he said we had about 6,100 accounts.
That's a lot.
It is a significant, I'm surprised based on the number of households in town that there can even be that many, so it must be wildly popular.
Yeah. There were a lot of people who joined when it first came into
Yeah.
town. There
It's a
were,
good program.
yeah.
So
It's worth
not-
the extra bucks you pay for the,
doesn't impact the budget.
Nope.
Right, goes right to the homeowners.
With that
and-
and my solar panels, we sometimes.
And we're finally getting solar
zero on our
panels. I can't
bills.
wait. I'm so excited.
And I would have benefited, we just had Mass Save at my house, and we didn't spend a lot of money, but we spent a little bit of money. It would have been great to get a reimbursement on that. For the public, call up Mass Save if you haven't in the last 10 years. They're amazing.
Oh, yeah, we've used them before. I love them.
My daughter just did that
Phenomenal.
at their house.
It's a
It's-
And
Great- great program.
even if you did it 8 to 10 years ago, you can still do it again.
Yeah, they've been marching around my neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right, any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move the Finance Committee recommend Article 17 as presented.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Before I make a motion on Article 18, Tim gave a lot of good information. It sounds like it needs to be done. I'm just concerned that we're granting the ability to take something by eminent domain, and we don't know what the impact or the cost is. Concerns me a little bit.
Did he say he would have a number by town meeting?
No.
it's a 10-11, yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yes,
I
bid,
thought
Yeah,
because
that-
it went
yeah,
out to
10-11
bid.
I
decision.
thought that bid was on the, oh yeah, they're right, I'm sorry. So he will have a number by town meeting.
So
No,
can
you
we
know,
put
you're
this?
you're right. The October 11th was the bids for the cell tower.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I don't
Yes.
think there was anything on this.
No,
So-
he's waiting for appraisers to get back to him.
Yeah.
This was
And he
not a
said the
question of
appraisers
bids.
are slow.
Slow, that's right.
Sorry.
We confused the two subjects.
Yeah, I
Thank you
apologize.
for clarifying that.
So could we just oppose passage because we don't have enough information? I would like to know what it's going to be assessed at.
Well, what I'm afraid of is if you grant eminent domain and they take it for $10 or whatever, and then the assessed value and they fight it, it's $1 million, and the
Right.
courts do that, we're on the hook for that money. So I would like to know what the cost is before town meeting takes action on that. I'd like to know what the appraised value is. So I'm
That's
a
what I've
little
been-
concerned.
I
Yeah.
agree, and I would like to know what it is too, and at this moment, I can say we can oppose information, we oppose passage because we're waiting for more information. We can do it that way,
I support that. I'll second that motion.
So, to be clear,
and then we
Tim,
can reconsider.
Tim is not expecting to have the,
I think he wants to have it by town meeting, but he did say that the appraisals are
hasn't.
slow.
okay, so then, yeah, I guess reconsider if we get
We
it.
can reconsider at town
Yeah.
meeting.
And somebody, if you let Tim know, the only reason that we're doing that is we want to understand what the price is.
But we
Eminent
can
domain is
put
a pretty
in,
powerful authority.
Yeah, it's not up to us to sign blank checks.
Yeah.
who
So
is doing 18 anyway?
Is it possible we could
Dan.
get that information before Monday?
So you want
I
to hold
mean-
off on that until Monday?
I'm just wondering, can we ask him the question and you can get additional clarity rather than oppose it?
Well, no, because
I
we always,
I get your concern.
we usually, don't we always meet like the half hour before? So
Town
if we
meeting.
got information before then, on the floor of town meeting, we can say, we have changed our recommendation based on.
Would you feel more comfortable if Sue had sent, or you could have send a memo to Tim and say, Finance Committee would like to pose passage only because we're waiting to see what your appraisal is gonna be on that property, so that we have an idea if it's gonna be taken by eminent domain, what it would cost us in the end if it's fought.
Can I ask another question? Have we ever, you've been on the finance committee, you're a
Never
youngster.
taken
but
anything
you're
by
se-
domain.
Was that?
We've never taken anything by eminent domain that I'm aware
No,
of.
no, no, no. My question is, has the finance committee ever deferred a recommendation until town meeting?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, then I move we defer a recommendation on Article 18 until
What do you
town
mean
meeting.
defer?
Defer, don't make a decision until the night of town meeting on whether we oppose it or support it. Let's not take a position.
And then in the
We've never
text of
done
that,
that.
in
We
the
say
text
we're
of that
just waiting for the
recommendation,
appraisal.
we
We-
say,
We've never deferred, we've always opposed or.
You have to have
we-
the answer.
According to charter,
But
we have
what's
to.
wrong with Monday? Because we can vote on Monday.
Well, what if you don't have the information by then?
Then we will oppose it, I guess.
Right.
All right. But you don't
So
want
in
to just
other words, we're
defer
gonna
the
not
vote
vote
until
tonight.
town meeting? Defer the recommendation until town meeting?
Because we don't have to vote tonight, we can wait and vote Monday.
All right.
That's right.
All right, I'm sorry.
I'd like to vote Monday. Let's
Okay.
give Tim a chance to respond to our concern.
I think
'cause
charter
get
says we
that.
have to make recommendations.
Oh,
do
so we
have to
don't,
make-
we
We've
have to
never
make a
deferred.
recommendation, but it doesn't say when we have to make the recommendation.
Well, that's true, that's,
So all I'm saying is, if you don't have, if, I wait till Monday, that's fine. But if you don't have the information Monday, defer until the 21st.
I like that because I feel like that's, if we oppose passage with the intent that we'll reconsider it if we get a number, that's really what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're really deferring it, and we're kind of just saying, we're just putting like a default answer in
Yeah.
of opposing, but in reality, we're waiting until town meeting to
but if you defer it,
reconsider
you've got to tell them why we're deferring it.
I agree.
Sure.
Because that's got in the paper.
We're waiting for information on the appraisal.
And usually we just oppose passage
That's what
because
we
we
would
were
do.
waiting for information on
You either
that.
recommend or you oppose.
Right.
and
Now
Yeah, there is no such thing as defer.
I don't,
Broach new ground, break new ground, break new ground.
I don't.
No, so it's Monday night, we either have to recommend passage or oppose.
That's correct.
And I'm fine with waiting till Monday night, but on Monday night, we either have to do one or the other.
I disagree. I think you can defer the recommendation until the night
No,
of
because
town
it
meeting.
has to go to
So
publication.
I
You
think-
say we're deferring and we're gonna make a decision
No,
because
we
we didn't have
can't.
enough.
We're-
That's not a
think we
Susan's
can-
telling you we
Deferring
cannot.
is not a
If
decision.
you choose not to decide, you still have
Yeah.
made a choice. I just wanted,
Let me look into it for Monday night. I'll
So
look into it.
We're not in the Dead Poet Society here.
we're not gonna quote Rush lyrics tonight, is that what you're saying?
Let's call Ukraine
Let's-
about this one.
Let's talk about that Monday.
Article
No, China,
18
we'll ask
is
China.
going to hold
We'll ask
till
China.
Monday.
Monday.
Can I just clarify a point? A little
course.
confused. We're really concerned about, we're gonna spend the 130 to take the pipe across Adams Road. All right?
That we gotta do regardless.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then the question is, all right, you end that pipe, now where's that water gonna go? And what we wanna do is run a pipe down somebody's land already.
Yeah, 1,800 feet.
That hasn't been
asking for-
developed yet.
What will it cost to take that, to purchase that
Easement.
right of way, that easement?
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, the estimators come back and say, oh, it's gonna be $52,000.
I'd be in support of that.
And the homeowner says, make that $2,052,000 or I'm taking you to court.
I don't think there are any houses on there yet.
There
It's
aren't,
not developed
no.
yet.
It's undeveloped.
It's undeveloped piece of land, and they're dealing with the developer.
But your point is there could be a dispute with the landowner.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
And there's potential liability. I think that's Mark's
That's
concern.
what I'm
Mark's
concerned about.
concerned about.
Yes.
Well, this
What-
is why
what's
you
our
go to,
potential
this is
liability?
why you have an appraiser give you a number.
Right.
They'd be hard pressed in court, okay, to say that a professional appraiser, they'd have to get their own professional appraiser to come in.
Exactly, and that's what the problem is, and that's happened. We had a situation where we appraised a piece of property at $500,000. Our appraiser guaranteed it was $500,000. The people said it's worth $2.5 million. Their appraiser said $2.5 million. We did a debt exclusion to raise $2 million to pay off that. So there's liability potential here.
Right.
And, you know, at $52,000, great, do it, let's sign it up.
And I think,
$2 million, I don't think so.
and I think the liability potential goes up if there were houses developed on that
Exactly.
property.
Yeah.
Because you gotta keep something in mind, that property becomes less valuable to develop with an easement of water going through it. So there's a lot of stuff that has to happen here.
Absolutely. So
But if the
let's send a
pipe is-
memo to Tim,
Yeah, okay.
and outline what our concern is, and if we get additional information, by
You gonna
Monday, we
send a
can.
memo?
I'll send a memo
Okay.
to Tim, yep.
I move we approve Article 19 as presented. Recommend Article 19 as presented.
Hold on, let me see what that was.
Second that
Second.
motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Then,
Motion carries.
yeah, Article 30, he's gonna use 100,000, right? That's what he said, he just doesn't know
Yep.
how he's gonna do the accounts. I recommend approval of Article 30 as presented,
30 or 20?
30,
Oh, so you've jumped.
because we already voted
Oh,
20.
right, okay. Oh,
I
God,
was following Susan's notes.
I'm losing it.
He's on top of it.
That's why I made, that's on the move.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
No.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
just
Since
don't
it's
know
Articles
which
20,
accounts.
21, and 22.
Yeah.
I get an hour on each one of those?
No, you don't.
But I
Do
have
you
a
wanna
whole-
get strung up like you
I
almost did
have
the
a
last
whole
time?
PowerPoint slideshow
We
and
have
movie
mosquitoes to
music
talk
and-
about, we have CIPC to talk about.
I'm
No,
really
you
sad that
don't.
I'm not gonna be at this meeting for that debate.
For the mosquito,
Yeah,
you'll get to watch it later.
I know, but I wanted to argue against it.
What happened to 26? Did we vote?
26, we need to vote on the cell tower.
I thought you already took the position on that. That said
No, we
voted.
didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I don't
Oh.
think so.
It says
It
on
says-
here
it
that we
says
did.
voted
Yeah.
on
I
my
don't think
notes
we
here.
did.
We did not.
We
Oh.
did not, because we
All
were
right.
waiting for Tim.
Then I move, we recommend approval of Article 26 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Did we get 3:30?
We did.
I apologize, guys.
You did say voted, right?
I
I
didn't
did.
say which accounts though, right? Which stabilization accounts he's gonna put in.
He mentioned municipal
Yep,
capital
you're
in
right
general.
on top of it.
He said municipal, I know.
He
he
said
mentioned,
if
but
it
he
was
didn't-
gonna be 100,000, it was just all gonna go into general.
General stabilization?
Yeah.
But he said it would be in the motion.
I will not, I have a selectmen's meeting Monday night, so I will not be here Monday.
Yeah, I should be here Monday, something unusual.
Good. Anybody else not gonna be here on Monday? Great.
Oh, excuse me.
Monday night's just the worst night of the week for me.
And you want all the recommendations Sunday night?
Please.
Yep, recommendation Sunday night. Monday, we're also talking about the document that Sue wrote, so please review
Yeah,
that,
manual.
the manual. Let's see, we got
And the,
tonight.
are you looking at the drafts? If, in your packet, if you take a quick look at the drafts to see of the agendas, to see if you want anything added or subtracted. And that is behind the meeting schedule.
Okay.
We can take it any way you want there, Mr. Chair. You want to go through the meeting schedule, or?
Yeah, let's look at the schedule.
Yep. So the 17th is firm, conference room A,
That's the meeting with the moderator and the selectmen.
yes,
Okay.
7 o'clock.
All right, so we have that, we have the 21st. Monday. And then I'd like to consider a meeting in November. And I guess I'm open to topics, some potential things. Could be a TRICOM meeting potentially. I think, there's already been some discussion about the budget, not shortfall, but, yeah, not deficit, but shortfall. I think Tim would prefer. I'm not sure what his concern was.
Well, I guess
was-
his point is a valid point. You have new revenue of $2.1 million.
Yeah,
So how can you have a deficit when you're adding revenue to the budget? The request coming in, or the anticipated request coming in, is showing a shortfall of revenue of $800,000. But you still have, this is his argument, you still have $2.1 million of new revenue.
But.
That's
but what-
that's his argument. I think it's a deficit, because,
That's what a deficit is. It's
Exactly.
not, what he's calling shortfall is what a deficit is.
yeah, I think it's semantics.
Yeah, when income doesn't match outgo.
Correct. It's a deficit.
Is there
that
some
makes a
stigma to
structural
the word deficit versus shortfall? I didn't understand what he was getting at with kind of objecting to using that word.
Frankly, admitting Ed was right, I think, might be it.
Well, I'll play the game just for fun. Deficit means it's actually happened. Shortfall means you can still adjust.
Yeah. Anticipated.
Right, so a deficit would be, in retrospect, a shortfall is projected and can be changed.
So it's a projected deficit versus
It's an
projected
anticipated
shortfall
deficit or a
versus an
no
actual
shortfall.
deficit.
And if the school committee comes in at 5.9,
All
there
right.
goes that 2.1.
Just picture your corporate environment where those words start to get bandied about, and picture the reaction of managers as they're walking past senior executives who are mumbling about that. And I'm having nightmares right now of that kind of experience when somebody says, yeah, we're gonna be short. Okay, who's getting axed?
Sure.
But we have money for mosquitoes now. I'm sorry. I can't. I gotta stop.
Well, and the thing is.
You won that
I
one.
know, I'm
To your
sorry.
house.
Mosquito marks.
Sorry,
And
you
I
won it.
agree with you, but,
I know, Dan,
and
I'm
Mark, and you're
sorry.
not gonna be there, but be prepared for the people literally in tears,
I know.
terrified for the lives of their children, and I am not insensitive to that.
No, neither am I.
You
I worry about that, but
Yeah.
it's a matter of priority.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at risk, my children are at risk, just like theirs are. I just don't feel that spending that money reduces their risk at all, about as much as me buying one lottery ticket to, Powerball.
Well, maybe it's an educational thing, and we put it lengthy in the write-up.
I'm gonna work on this write-up. I'm running it by you, Matt, when I'm done with the write-up, make sure you're comfortable with it.
Sounds good. So we had some additional potential agenda items. We could bring the GSC in to talk about their kind of,
Are they gonna be ready to bring?
We
discuss
are,
anything?
it's a good
yeah,
question.
I think so. Barry's done a lot of work. That was the greatest decision we ever made.
No,
Yes. I'm
Where are
saying it
you
was.
at with GSC?
We're benchmarking. We're in the process of doing our
Okay.
benchmarking, and what we're working on right now, Barry's put together a lot of information on the towns that we're looking at to decide what communities we want to compare ourselves with, and then we can get into the meat and potatoes discussion on, are they doing it better? How are they, getting their budgets without overrides, or have they needed overrides? Are we similar or not? So, they're meeting next Thursday night to go over some of the benchmarking information. So I think we might be ready in
so
November.
think about that.
Yeah, we might be ready.
Rather
We'll
than
talk about
just,
it, right? You don't think we'll be ready?
no.
Okay, we
Now,
won't be ready.
I kind of understand there's two groups. What's the other group doing?
They're looking at the schools.
They're looking at the schools.
Yeah, they're doing
okay.
the same,
Benchmarking the
the
schools.
towns that the DOR compares Grafton to is one set of towns, municipal,
Mm-hmm.
and then the school district is compared to other communities. There's a couple of overlaps, but I think it's a pretty separate list.
Barry, did Ed share with you the, stuff I had done that I sent him?
From,
I'm taking a course to get my certification to be a school business administrator, and one of the things I did for my last project was put together different ways to compare Grafton. And one of them was based on size of the district, X number of students. How many other schools have
did
this
give that
many
to us,
students?
no, he didn't.
And then you could also do it based on geography. And then you could also do it based on household income. You could also do it based on medium house value. And I did at least 3 of those.
Yeah.
And we come out with a completely different set of towns on each one of those criteria. I'll send you a copy of that.
I'd be interested to see that.
I'm pretty mu- this thing is a nightmare. I'm pretty much on the municipal side,
Yep.
and there are other people who are designated to take care of the schools.
Yeah.
But,
Well, this one does everything. My particular comparison does the entire town budget and includes looking at what percentage of the total town budget is the school.
Yes,
You know,
Then it also
Irene,
looks at the primary purpose of it was to look at how much of the school budget is funded by the town versus how much is funded by the state.
yeah, I've examined a lot of that in the past just because I was curious about some of the things that have been said. The challenge is, number one, to make sure you get all of the data,
Yep.
the appropriate data. That has not happened. Then you need to say, okay, what are the more appropriate data points? Because the one thing I looked at had 64 data points you could look at. One that was totally weird. You need to say, this is important, that's not important.
Yeah.
All of that is really cool. You do that with the schools, you do that with municipals, all that is cool. But then what do you do with it? What if you see, I don't know, Peter Sam is really good, because that's one of the school ones, which is ridiculous. What we're really looking for is, what ideas do we have for maybe controlling costs or enhancing revenues?
Yeah.
Are there, so getting all of this data is really important, because what it lets us do is say, we really don't compare with Shrewsbury, nor do we compare with Westboro. Why don't we compare with Auburn or Millbury? And that's their
Yeah.
commercial property. How come their commercial property is listed so low? So there's little data points to examine there. But what are you gonna do with that? We want to try to identify, if we're gonna be sustainable, are there other revenue opportunities? Are there cost savings opportunities?
Yep.
Instead of spending 71,000 out of pocket, can we have the town people do the bug stuff?
Right.
So, send it, cool.
Yeah.
But so far in the meetings that we've had, Ed did a very nice, he gave us what had been done with the previous town, and he said, this is what we're really trying to do. You know, we're trying to be sustainable, we're not trying to identify and attack and whatever. But we need all of the people in this group to now look at the budget book, at least for the last year. Dig into that, read that. They need to have a handle on what's in there, because there's lots of very good nuggets in there, as well as hard and cold facts. For the last couple of years, this is how much we spent on police, this is how much we spent on fire, this is the revenue that we brought in for each of those. They need to do that. That has not happened so far. Then, once we get that baseline of the town, we can look at these other towns. Then we can start saying, well, where can we make, what towns are doing real well in generating revenue, and what towns are doing really well in controlling expenses?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so
the point.
It's like 3 steps. Very little of that has happened so far.
We're in a data gathering
Yeah.
stance
I
right now.
am.
You've done a great job. I said that.
Well, one of the things I was interested
schools
in
are
was,
doing-
I
the
always
school
felt
size are
like
the
we
same
had
thing.
too many schools. But I found out in my research that most of the districts with our number of students had pretty much the same configuration, you know, which was 2, 2, 1, 1. You know, two youngers, 2 intermediates, 1 middle or junior, and 1 senior. And I was surprised. I thought I was gonna find that we should only have 4 schools instead of 6, but no. Most of the districts, again, in our, a little bit smaller, a little bit larger than us, have 6 schools.
When it came to the schools, one of the things,
Bless you.
I did a couple analyses, including the one of how much of the total budget goes to the schools as opposed to municipal side.
Yeah.
There's actually one DESE website that will tell you it's almost every town is 50%, almost. I was surprised at that. There's also data we really need to do on the school side, and that is to examine how the foundation budget and the supplemental budget, how all that works.
Oh,
What
yeah.
numbers are they using there? Per
I can tell you
capita,
that.
et cetera.
All right,
That's
Can we
critical.
table that discussion?
Yeah.
But in answer to your question about having a meeting, I
We're not
think-
ready, Matt.
Maybe we can revisit in a month or so after you guys have had a couple of additional meetings. I'd be interested in where you guys are at. I'd be interested in the progression of how things are going. And we can do that either through just subcommittee reports. I'm fine with that, but, at the time where you guys feel like you're ready to present anything,
Yeah.
I'd be very interested in having you guys come and present to us and also to the public. I think it's interesting work that we're doing. We're facing that budget, projected budget shortfall for next year, and I think these discussions have to be front and center in all the boards and committees, and this is obviously one of those venues. So I think it's an important topic that we want to keep our pulse on. Another thing that I'm interested in doing, and I wanted to find out if there's interest within the rest of the board, is it's always driven me a little crazy that we don't have any objectives for the year. So we spend a lot of time in this room with a lot of stakeholders. We put a lot of time and energy into this process. And it's my observation that it's not particularly directional. There's lots of experience on the board. There's some new people on the board. I think we have a good mix at this point of perspective. And I'd be interested in just having a discussion about what do we want to do this year?
When you say, when you say objectives, are you saying, like, I know school committees, when they set their budget goals for the year, they'll say, we want you to focus on special education programming in the district this year. So the
Yep.
objective is to bring, more programs into the district.
Yep, they have a strategic.
They have a strategic way they plan to do it.
They update every year,
And
yep.
they're very good at it.
Yep.
You want to see that on the municipal side.
I would like to see Finance Committee have a direction, have some things, a short list of things that maybe we want to emphasize this year, so that we're not completely beholden to the budget management process and the town meeting process.
So
because
what are you thinking of? Give us an example.
I actually don't want to be prescriptive in that area. I want to have an open discussion, and so one thing
Can you
that.
give me just an example, though?
Well, something that has come up repeatedly is capital. So that's something I sort of just took ahead last year, but there are other things that have popped up, like the budget process, perhaps. I don't know.
So, one of the things that could be an objective of the Finance Committee in the budget process is to have budget guidance decided on by the Select Board and the Finance Committee prior to the town administrator starting the budget.
Yep.
So our guidance to you this year is to focus on road improvements. I'm just throwing out an idea. So
Sure.
we want to make sure that the budget this year addresses that. Or something that's coming down the pike, 24-hour full-time fire coverage, or at least having some full-time firefighters. So maybe the focus of the budget this year is figure out how you're going to pay for adding X amount of full-time firefighters in the budget without cutting other services. So that's what you're getting at. I think I agree with you 100%.
That's what I'm getting at.
I think
So
it's awesome.
there are some pressing issues
Yep.
that are important this year, but then there are also some themes that seem to emerge every year, that because we're so reactive to the budget process and the meeting schedules and everything else, I think sometimes we lose kind of the bigger picture a little bit, because it becomes a little bit too mechanical, I guess, in my mind. So it would be interesting to me to have some things to think about throughout the year as we go through the process that are kind of themes that we focus on.
Do you think it's too late to do that this year? Do you think there's enough time before the budget starts? Well, he's already sort of started the
Well,
budget.
it's already started, but we could do, there's a fire study that's coming up. I don't know when that's going to be completed, but it would be interesting to look at that and make some, discussions as to how. But I think one of the things we need to do is look at that 5-year projection and make some recommendations ourselves, I think.
So I
I'd
would.
like to know what's included in it.
I'd love to focus on the 5-year projection, as well as just as important as the numbers that are in there are the assumptions that are on the back page. Things like how conservative do we want to be on our revenue projections, for example, is a really important one that's called out in a bunch of best practices, and I don't feel like we
I've been
have.
having that battle right now. I'm battling that now. That's a huge, I agree with you 100%.
So there you go. So that's a great example. So I'd like to just have that discussion about maybe 2 or 3 things that we focus on this year to
I
try
think we
to,
should invite-
try to move the ball.
Should we invite somebody or members of the select board to join us in that discussion? Because ultimately it affects, right, the whole budget process, which the select board plays a vital role in, a majority role in. So, do we, when we have that discussion, do we want to invite the select board into the meeting to say?
Absolutely, I think. Because
think we
they're
do.
the one that are going to be really advising Tim and saying, no, we don't want you to do this, we want you to do that, so.
Yeah,
Specific to the
actually-
projections?
Specific to
Discussion?
anything that, if we're gonna come up with budget objectives, I think we have to have a buy-in from the select board if it's going to be successful.
I was
I
gonna
agree with you 100%.
I was gonna say I would be concerned that we would get pushback from the select board.
Yep.
Because
Or
I
they'll
would be
just say,
concerned that they would think
we'll
that
do
we're
it ourselves and
stepping into
then
their
put it on their
area.
list.
But that's, that's okay. If we don't take the risk, we aren't gonna get out there, we're not gonna be heard if we don't do something.
Right, my point being,
So I
if we
see-
get buy-in, then we can,
Well, I understand, but
I see our goals and objectives for the year, the things that we want to do, the things are things that we should workshop and define. That getting the selectmen, the select board's buy-in is a separate thing in my mind.
So you think we need to develop it first?
I do.
Okay,
that's
and
what I'm
then bring it,
thinking.
all right, that's
We
fine.
can absolutely develop it in a way that we are respecting the authority and mandate of other, with the expectation that we'll get their buy-in.
I
So-
just don't want to be, I guess my concern and why I brought it up is I just don't want to have anybody accuse us of trying to usurp any authority or any policy directives.
that's
Well,
what I
we're
would
not
expect. I
policy.
wouldn't expect buy-in. I just,
But
like,
when-
I'm for this, but just to play devil's advocate, I feel like there's a perspective that the finance committee's role is reactive, and we're supposed to respond to things that come to us from the select board. And I think that the people who have that perspective are not going to like anything that we come up with because not because we came up,
So
but
this is a
because
chicken-
we're doing it out of the process that they expect.
So this is like a chicken and an egg kind of thing. What comes first? The buy-in or or do we come up with something and then try to sell it?
So, one of the things that we could talk about as an objective is actually to improve that relationship with the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board. I'm never gonna get that right,
Well, it's Barry's fault. I
but
can't
I'm gonna
blame him.
keep correcting myself until I do. Let's table this conversation, I
well, we
think.
have a select board member here.
Yeah, let's put them on the spot.
We'll put you on the spot, Pete. You think we should
Wasn't
build?
even listening.
So let's leave this conversation for now. I think,
Right.
it's something that I'd like to explore the idea, and I think
Well,
it would be,
I just want to remind everybody, we're not a policy-making group,
right.
so we aren't going to be making policy at all doing that. But I certainly would like to see the finance committee looking at a lot of numbers before the departments start shoving stuff at Tim and making decisions, so that we might just, steer the selectmen and Tim to look more at this area of the operating budget and to give it more consideration than they may have in the past. But I would like to see us being involved a little bit earlier than we are.
I agree with that.
I do too.
Good discussion, Matt.
All right,
Matt, a question.
sir.
We've been thinking external with some of the initiatives. How about internal? Do we feel that the finance committee is a master of the budget process, the definitions of, I don't know, debt service and et cetera, et cetera? Do we know enough about all of that stuff that's in the budget book and in the audit report? Things along those lines. Are we, as a finance committee, do we know the finance?
I think we have a lot of experience on this committee. Yes.
Are you asking, do we each as individuals, or do you mean we as a committee, as a whole? As individuals, I can say, if they're 1 year. I definitely don't have all of that,
Same.
but,
For 1 month.
yeah.
1 month, yeah, I
The
didn't,
the first, AT, whatever we'll call it, the Association of Town Finance Committees meeting, that we went to, that I went to. The guy got up and he said, yeah, this is what we do with a new committee member. I take them aside and I run them through over a couple of nights, 6 hours, 8 hours of, this is what we do, and this is how we do it, and this is how you calculate that. Here's the 4 revenue streams and the 5 expense streams, blah, blah, blah.
Are you volunteering to do that? Because I will absolutely take you up on that.
If only I knew how to do all of that.
So that could be a great objective, though, is to develop an onboarding process for new members, for example. And I think that's a great idea.
Colleen, I'll walk you through anything you want to know about the
Sweet.
budget process.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I kind of do that for a living, so I kind of understand it.
Perfect.
All right. So that's that bit. What else do we have?
The answer is yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
So we have a review of the reserve fund and budgets.
For Monday,
Is that Mondays?
we can at least do the reserve fund if we're not ready for finance committee. If not, we can push it out a little bit, and talk about it on the 17th.
Okay.
But we should have it done by the 21st because it needs to be submitted.
So for those, we needed a little bit of information about,
Yep, Colleen did submit some information that we'll have for all members on Monday. Is that as far as we're going with that, Colleen?
Oh, no, I'm gonna try to get more, but,
Before Monday?
what time Monday do you need it by?
Well, we have a
At the
meeting at
meeting.
7.
Oh, yeah, sure, I'll have more information before then.
You sure?
What-
Okay,
do you
thank
know what?
I have no idea what
she's-
you're talking about.
She's, because we're putting together a book of, it's not a job description, but of Sue's responsibilities and duties. And one of the things we were looking at, because she gets such low increases in her salary, and she's not comparable, we don't think, to other finance committee secretaries out there, administrative assistants. So we asked Colleen to look at other towns, to make a comparison and talk to them to see. Sue's in a very unique position because a lot of the other committees have from their own departments, people who come in and do this, and we have not had that ever with this finance committee.
Right.
So if we ever lost Sue, we would never be able to find someone
There's
comparable.
nobody else?
No. There's no one comparable that would take the job at what
Right.
she's
At what she's
working
being
at
paid.
now, yeah.
so we're trying to benchmark the role.
Oh, okay, good, that's
Basically.
awesome.
Yeah.
So-
So I say we table that and the, unless everyone's ready to talk about it, the finance committee manual,
Table it,
table
mean
that
till
till
Monday,
till Monday.
yeah.
All right?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.